this live stream. Hope everybody's having a at least decent evening so far. We do have a lot to cover though in this live stream. I'm going to give you the latest breakdown on Hurricane Ian that is currently tracking towards Cuba right now and will impact Florida beginning in the next 24 hours, or you might already be beginning to see some impacts from Hurricane Ian. I'll tell you what I'm talking about here in just a second, but let's first begin with the satellite imagery and then we'll hop over to what we're expecting over the next several days. I'll give you a forecast, I'll answer some questions for you and all that sort of stuff. Before we get too far into it, make sure to hit the like button down below if you've not already, and also make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel so you stay updated with the latest from Max Velocity. All right, let's hop right into the satellite imagery as of right now, and this is again a very impressive hurricane. It is now a Category 2 hurricane with sustained winds near 100 miles per hour, and that will continue to intensify as it moves towards Cuba. In fact, it may become a Category 3 hurricane by as early as tonight or going into the overnight hours. So it's going to continue to strengthen as it moves towards Cuba. As of right now, you can actually see that there is right now a hurricane warning in effect for western Cuba. The only thing is you can't see the land because of the satellite imagery, but beyond that, it is again a very impressive hurricane. There is a lot of convection with this system, and it is again tracking off to the north as of right now. It is forecasted to become a Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds around 135 to 140 miles per hour. So it actually has been increased from yesterday. Yesterday was at 130 miles per hour. Now it's forecasted to get up closer to 140 miles per hour just off to the west of Florida. Eventually it'll approach Tampa, most likely going into Thursday. It will likely still be a Category 4 hurricane, only about 100 miles southwest of Sarasota. It will eventually weaken down to a Category 3 hurricane, still with sustained winds around 115 miles per hour. Maximum wind gusts could still be upwards of 140 miles per hour, and eventually will make landfall sometime most likely on Friday. But you can still see, regardless of what I just said, there is still a large cone of uncertainty. This realistically could go pretty much anywhere still, anywhere from about just east of Panama City back through Cape Coral. Now, one thing to note from what my last night's live stream was, one thing to really note here is that this has shifted further to the east over the last 24 hours, and this has also shifted further to the south and east, both in that sort of regard that we're still looking at now a better potential that this could potentially go east into areas like Tampa and maybe even cross over Florida. There's also an increasing likelihood that it could go into the Atlantic Ocean, but obviously that's pretty long term, but it's going to be something to watch for very closely, and a lot of these things will be answered most likely over the next 24 to 48 hours because it's about to go over Cuba. Once it goes over Cuba, we really should have a better idea of where this is going to track into Florida, whether that's Tampa or elsewhere. Also, another thing to note, we do have now officially hurricane warnings in effect for those in Tampa and Sarasota. It goes down near Port Charlotte. There are tropical storm warnings in effect from Cape Coral back through the Florida Keys. There is actually a hurricane warning just west of Key West. There's also an ongoing hurricane watch back up through Spring Hill, and then the Big Bend right now is under a tropical storm watch. Another thing to note, almost the entire east coast of Florida, only areas not included is Miami and West Palm Beach, are included in a tropical storm watch as well. There may be some low storm surge along with flooding rains in this area, and tropical storm force winds may be possible along the coast here. So there's going to be a lot to talk about with that here in just a moment. Now let's hop over to the computer models. Let's get to all the other details in terms of the long-term forecast and what we're expecting in terms of storm surge and whatnot. First, beginning with the storm surge potential, because this is a big thing to note here, especially if you live along the coastline. We are currently looking at now a new forecast that indicates we could see the potential for 5 to 10 feet of storm surge in the Tampa Bay region. That would again be from Tampa Bay, basically around the middle of Longboat Key, back up through Anclote River, and then eventually we'll have 5 to 8 feet of storm surge that's currently forecasted from about Suwannee River back through Anclote River. And also another area to note here is going to be Englewood and through Bonita Beach. Those areas going to have the potential for between 4 to 8 feet of storm surge. We also have another area to watch that's going to be back in southwestern Florida that will go through East Cape Sable for the potential for 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. The Key West region, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge, and also Indian Pass through about the Osceola River. If I'm saying the name right, I might not be saying it right, but that's going to be 1 to 3 feet of storm surge back up in the Florida Panhandle. Now, a lot of this does have to depend on where this tracks, because again, if this hurricane crashes into Tampa, obviously the most likely area where we'll see the most significant storm surge will be along the west coast here around Tampa Bay. But if it goes a little bit further off to the north like this, we'll probably see these totals up to the north maybe even increase a little bit with higher storm surge along areas in the Big Bend. There's also on the East Coast an area of storm surge to watch, and actually the entire East Coast may see some storm surge. Now, it's only about a foot, basically up to a foot along the East Coast. That would include areas from about West Palm Beach back through about Georgia, but there is an area now from 2 to 4 feet of storm surge from about the Flagler and Volusia County line back through about central eastern portions of Georgia there, so just along the coastline. I believe that's near Brunswick, if I'm not mistaken, in Georgia. So that's another area to watch for very closely in terms of extreme rainfall. Now, another thing to note will be the rainfall totals with this system, which are forecasted to be pretty significant. I did not mean to change the screens. But back over to the rainfall totals, we are likely going to see significant rainfall from this system. I'm talking the potential for some flooding rains. And you can see here, the key's going to be on the right side of your screen. You can, again, on the right side of the screen there. Biggest area of concern in terms of flooding rains will be the West Coast. So basically from Tampa Bay back through about the Big Bend, that area has the best potential for flooding rains over the next several days as the system gets closer. You can see there's a potential for 20 inches of rain just off the coast. That is because we are likely going to see this hurricane start to stall out a little bit as it moves closer to areas on the West Coast. So that's going to be an area to watch very closely. Also, another area to note, we have the potential for up to 10 inches of rain from Jacksonville back through areas like Daytona Beach, kind of along the Interstate 95 stretch, and also back through Cape Canaveral. There might be a potential for up to 6 inches of rain. Obviously, higher amounts are definitely possible, but definitely the biggest concern, it seems like, across almost all of the basically the peninsula of Florida, the biggest concern will be extreme rains, potentially bring some flooding rains as well across the state. Now, you can again kind of see here that we're looking at most of the rain being across the peninsula of Florida. The panhandle is going to be kind of a 50-50. If you're like near Tallahassee, you'll probably see the potential for some very heavy rains, between about 6, maybe 8 inches of rain potentially, depending on where this makes landfall. But again, that's a bit long-term still. All right, this is a look at the Weather Prediction Center's flash flood risk over the next 3 days. It's kind of a confusing graphic at first. I'll show you the other graphic in a little bit later, but there is currently a moderate threat for flash flooding that does include Orlando, Daytona Beach, Tampa Bay, back through Miami and Key West over the next 3 days. The best threat for flash flooding will be through Thursday morning. So that's what we're looking at as of right now. And obviously, Hurricane Ian is massive. This, if you've seen the satellite imagery of this, it is a massive storm. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, it's around 500 to 600 miles wide. I might be a little bit off on that. If somebody can correct me on chat, that'd be great. But I think it's around that right now in terms of its width. It is a massive storm. There's a lot of convection as well. And obviously, just south of Cuba, we are beginning to see a lot of thunderstorm activity blowing up. There's also a couple of other storms that are starting to move in now to Cuba. So it is a massive storm as of right now, just south of Cuba. Here's the official National Hurricane Center's track. I'll put more detail on this in a few minutes once I get back to the software. But you can currently see that we're looking at the potential for this to become a major hurricane tonight and into the overnight hours. It's at sustained winds of 100 miles per hour. Again, it's a Category 2 hurricane as of right now. It is forecasted to stay a major hurricane through about Thursday morning, and eventually it's likely to make landfall somewhere in Florida as a strong hurricane of some sort, whether that's a Category 1 or 2. That's going to depend again on what its track is, whether that's down in West Florida, so near Tampa Bay, for example, or if it's closer to areas in the Panhandle. That's a big question mark still. But whether it makes landfall in either region, it's going to be much stronger if it were to make landfall closer to the West Coast near Tampa Bay. So that's an area that we're very concerned about as of right now across the, again, Florida region. Here's a look at the spaghetti models. This will update again in about 2.5 hours, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, about 2 hours or so. We'll have another update on this. But here's the latest runs of all the computer models, and a lot of them are currently bringing it now, and it's beginning to increase, that we're beginning to see more computer models either bring it through central Florida and potentially into the Atlantic Ocean, which is probably worst case scenario at this point, or a few other computer models are bringing it a little bit more on the track of it might make landfall near Tampa and then eventually go inland, and that's what's currently being forecasted by the way by the National Hurricane Center. And also a couple of other computer models which have not been that overly consistent are bringing it towards the Florida Panhandle. Either way, we're still looking at pretty significant impacts across Florida. Again, the track is beginning to shrink a little bit more. Once we get that 11 p.m. advisory tonight from the National Hurricane Center, we will have a bit more of an idea of what to expect for each location. Here's a look at the intensity guide. We're currently looking at the potential for this to become a Category 4 hurricane. It's not going to become, I don't think, a Category 5. That would take a lot more, which is just very unlikely. So at this point, it's going to probably be capped off around a Category 4 hurricane. But even then, that is a very strong hurricane. Again, wind gusts could very well reach potentially as high as 160 miles per hour just off the coast. All right, looking at the computer models, this is beginning with the European model. Again, not a whole lot has changed since last night. The European model does stall this system, though, going into late Wednesday night into Thursday morning, slows it down dramatically because of a Canadian cold front. It's actually expected to slow this system down substantially, which could bring flooding rains again to Florida going into basically Thursday and Friday. Eventually going to late Thursday, this is going into Friday morning. You can see how much it's moved. Basically from about Thursday morning to Friday morning, it barely moves. It only moves about maybe 50 miles at the most. So it's going to be a slow moving storm as it continues to track out to the north. And eventually the European model indicates it'll make landfall sometime late Friday up there in the Big Bend. Again, that's just one scenario. It's not a forecast. Again, that's just a computer model. Looking at the GFS model, it shows a similar instance. It shows, again, a strong hurricane just off the coast of Tampa. It seems like it might make a brief landfall there, at least with this computer model. But again, it stalls it out, which would potentially bring, again, much more extreme flooding to the west coast. And eventually going to Saturday, that eventually starts to move up back into Georgia. The NAM model, which is another model that we kind of look at a little bit, shows a somewhat similar scenario, but it doesn't stall it nearly as much. It eventually goes closer to Tampa, and then from there, it starts to move inland. It still stays stalled, but it obviously would bring a lot more flooding rain to potentially central Florida. So we have several different scenarios with this, but we're beginning to see more consistency with a landfall somewhere in this region from the Big Bend back through about Sarasota. Somewhere in that region seems to be more likely at this point than not. Here's a look at the estimated wind gusts. This is also not the most accurate depiction of the wind gusts. This typically underestimates the actual winds that we see, so just keep that in mind. But eventually going to Wednesday afternoon, we'll begin to see potentially some hurricane force winds areas in Sarasota and maybe even Tampa Bay. Again, that's due to the fact we do have a hurricane warning there, so that'd be why we're going to potentially see that as early as Wednesday. Also, Cape Coral, the potential for 70-mile-per-hour winds, definitely not out of the question. Eventually going to late Wednesday night, the winds really start ramping up, potentially over 100 miles per hour by this point, and eventually heading into potentially Thursday, we're going to still see that on go across the west coast. Depending on how long this stalls for, it very well could not just bring the potential for extreme rain, but it might also bring the potential for damaging winds for days on end across these areas. At least not days on end, but at least probably around 24 to 48 hours across this area. Also on the East Coast, I didn't really mention this a whole lot, but the East Coast does have a chance for some winds. They will not be hurricane force winds most likely, unless this system crosses Florida, but we are definitely going to see the potential for some tropical storm force winds. You can see a couple of areas near Jacksonville, 44 miles per hour, Daytona Beach, 40 miles per hour, and back through Palm Bay, 34 miles per hour. So we're still looking at some tropical storm force winds potentially on the East Coast, especially going through Thursday and Friday. And again, if it stalls for this long, it's definitely not what we want. It's pretty much going to be at that point pretty extreme what we're going to see in Florida. Our hope is that does not happen. Here's the European model showing a very similar instance, by the way. It does show higher wind gusts, which is a bit more accurate at this point. Eventually going to Friday into Saturday, that moves again off to the north. And again, Big Bend all the way back down through the west coast seem to have the best significant impacts to the system at this point. All right, here's a look at the NAM model as well. This one is not the most accurate of all of them, but it does give you another idea of what might happen with this system. The NAM model shows it makes landfall north of Cape Coral, which is also a possibility, but obviously, again, it's just one computer model. Honestly, to me, I think the European model has been pretty much the most consistent at this point, which is probably more likely than not going to be probably the scenario that we do end up seeing. Here's a look at the rainfall totals going through Saturday. I already showed you a graphic on this, but this is the European model showing around 20 to 30 inches of rain just off the west coast of Florida. Obviously, that is not inland, but that is the potential with this system just off the coast if it were to stall. You can see some other areas, though, inland. Again, they range anywhere from 2 to 3 inches in the lesser areas in the peninsula of Florida, but they also go up as high as like 7 to 8 inches. You can see even Daytona Beach, 7 inches, Jacksonville, 9 inches, Gainesville, 6 inches. So obviously, that's also a possibility in terms of the rainfall totals. The GFS model shows, again, a very similar instance. The heaviest of the rain, most likely to just stay off the coast of Florida. If not, if it gets any closer, that could be very dangerous in terms of extreme flooding. But obviously, this is showing the highest rainfall totals just off the coast with 20 inches potentially being possible there. Elsewhere, we're still looking across Florida between 3 to 7 inches of rain. And again, this is why we have a moderate threat for flash flooding through Thursday across much of Florida. Again, more on that here in just a second. Here's a look at the NAM model, which I don't buy this model at all. 30 inches to Tampa would be absolutely extreme. I don't forecast that. I would not expect that right now, but this is just another scenario from the NAM model. Here's a look at the QPF. This is from the WPC, which is the Weather Prediction Center. It's giving us an idea of where we could see the most extreme rainfall totals at this point. and it's pretty much probably the most accurate that we'll get right now. So basically we're looking from Panama City about 2 inches, Tallahassee 6 inches, Gainesville maybe as much as 9 inches, Jacksonville and Daytona Beach around 10 inches is currently what's forecasted. Again, this may change. This is basically a bit more specific than what I showed you on the graphic here from earlier. This is the graphic I showed a little bit earlier. So just give you a bit of perspective. It's basically the same thing. It's just showing you the actual totals that it's estimating as of right now. Again, things will change, but this is just an estimate that we're looking at as of right now from the Weather Prediction Center currently. All right, let's hop back over to the software. Let me go and show you a couple of other things that we're looking at over the next several days, because it's not going to just be rainfall, and it's not just going to be the damaging wind component from the tropical storm and hurricane force winds. We are also looking at the potential for some severe weather. That begins as early as tonight. There is a marginal threat for severe weather in the Key West region for potentially an isolated tornado or two. It's a pretty low threat today, but eventually going into Tuesday, we will begin to see that potential for a few tornadoes increase. That would go from Tampa back through Cape Coral and all the way down to the southwestern Florida. There's also another marginal threat of severe weather from about Deltona, so just south of Daytona Beach, back through Miami and also going through Tampa. Again, a couple of tornadoes may occur tomorrow. Our best chance, it seems like, for tornado potential will either be Wednesday or Thursday. As of right now, on Wednesday, we do have a slight risk for severe weather from Daytona Beach, almost up to Jacksonville. Jacksonville isn't a marginal threat. Back through Port St. Lucie, as well as going through Miami, Cape Coral, and as well as Tampa are still in that slight risk. A few tornadoes may occur again going into potentially Wednesday. Obviously into Thursday, there's no forecast yet, but we'll probably have a forecast on the severe weather potential there coming up pretty soon. We also have a potential for flash flooding. Let me go over to that. And this is a look at the flash flooding potential heading into Wednesday. Again, we do have a moderate threat for flash flooding that would include Gainesville, Jacksonville, as well as Port Orange, Orlando, Spring Hill, Tampa, Sarasota, Palm Bay. Anywhere in that red shaded region is indicating your potential for a moderate threat of flash flooding in that region. Again, we could see rainfall totals definitely exceed potentially a half a foot of rain in those areas, especially along the coastline near Tampa. There's also a slight risk that goes back up close to Tallahassee, just east of there through Jacksonville, so the Big Bend region, and all the way back down through even Miami and Cape Coral. So the potential for a little bit of flash flooding exists, and then we have a marginal threat just outside of that. So that's what we're looking at as of right now in terms of the rainfall amounts and whatnot, and what to expect over the next several days. Again, there's a lot to talk about with the system. We'll keep you updated with the latest and everything that you need to know. Let me take a quick breather and we'll get back to some talking here. Talked a lot there for a few minutes. Let me go ahead and put a different perspective on here real quick. This is going to have to load back up, so we'll look at the satellite imagery with this system, and we'll go and put it on here for now. All right, let me get to some chat questions. That was a lot of talk. How's everybody doing, by the way? Welcome on, everybody. How's everybody doing? All right, I'll try to get some questions. By the way, there is a slow mode of 10 seconds. That is just to prevent spam and whatnot. We do not have a chat moderator tonight, so that's the reason why it might take a little while for you to send several messages at once. By the way, apparently NASA is evacuating its prized moon rocket from its Florida launch pad as Hurricane Ian approaches. So I heard the Artemis mission has been delayed because of that, because of the hurricane, by the way. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard, at least. Thank you, by the way, to DK for the $100 super chat. Let's get some claps in the chat for DK. I really appreciate that. Sorry, I was talking a lot, so I wasn't looking at chat, but I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let me get my chat pulled up on here so I can just look at a different monitor. Get some claps in the chat, though, for DK. Again, if you're just tuning in, make sure to hit the like button. This gets out to more people that way. And make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're new here. By the way, this will be probably, I'm planning on this either being the entire live stream from now until like 11:30 or 12 o'clock tonight. Or I might do this as a live stream until like 9 o'clock or so, and then do another live stream from 10 to 1 a.m. or so. I'm not sure which one I'll do yet, but I do plan on doing potentially a second live stream tonight. This might not be the only one, but we'll see. If I'm hungry, then I'll probably split the live stream up a little bit. The current category is a category 2. It's a category 2 hurricane. Again, Ian, as of right now, category 2, sustained winds at 100 miles per hour. Let me bring up the other, let's go to the infrared imagery. This is a look at the infrared, by the way. So that's a look at the actual storm, but we'll take a look at the infrared. Yeah, I'm on the right thing here. Let's see if I can change it over here. There we go. This is a look at the infrared imagery. And by the way, we are beginning to see the outer bands starting to get pretty close to Florida. So outer bands of this storm are already beginning to get up that way. And again, if you're just tuning in, we do have an ongoing watches and warnings to get to real quick. Let me go back to the other angle. This is out the angle to show off. There we go. So we do have a hurricane warning. If you've not already heard, from Tampa back through Sarasota, there's already evacuation orders being issued for these areas. So again, if you're in this region, make sure that you are beginning to be prepared and evacuating. Take these orders seriously, because it's a pretty dangerous situation that we're looking at. Again, from Tampa back through Sarasota. There are tropical storm warnings in effect for areas like Cape Coral, back through basically southwest Florida. We do have, again, hurricane watch in effect back through just south of the Big Bend, so about Spring Hill, back through about Highway 98, so kind of just west of Ocala. We also have an ongoing tropical storm watch in effect just southeast of Panama City, so near Port St. Joe, back through about just south of Highway 98. I'm not sure how, I'm pretty sure it's a pretty rural area here near the Big Bend. Also, we do have a tropical storm watch ongoing for the East Coast. It's this yellow line that you can see. Let me do this. So this is a look at it. Again, from about West Palm Beach back up through about Brunswick, Georgia is the area that we're looking at right now for a tropical storm watch. There's also a tropical storm watch for the lake. I don't remember what lake this is. For whatever reason, I can't remember, but that's just west of West Palm Beach. We do have a tropical storm watch there as well. And really, the ongoing tropical storm watch includes every county. So I'll kind of go ahead and show you. Let's see if I can pull it up on here. Let's look at all the watches and warnings. They're not, I don't think, all updated, but tropical storm warning in effect for just southwest of Orlando, so Lakeland is included in that. And Port Charlotte also under a hurricane watch, a storm surge warning, and as well as a tropical storm warning as of right now. And down in southern portions of Florida, I'm pretty sure there's a tropical storm watch down here, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, there's no tropical storm watch for West Palm Beach or Miami as of now. There is one, though, for Port St. Lucie, back up through at least, I believe, Cape Canaveral, goes through Daytona Beach, and it goes all the way really through St. Augustine. There's also a storm surge watch in effect back up near Jacksonville and St. Augustine. And as you may know, if you live in Florida, St. Augustine is an area where the flooding rains, and obviously the water can rise very easily over the barriers there. So we very well could see some pretty extreme flooding there if the system were to make landfall, especially, and maybe even cross the Florida into the Atlantic Ocean. That could be a very dangerous situation there. So that's one of the things that we are very concerned about as of now with this overall system, especially for those along the East Coast, because that's obviously an area to watch pretty closely. All right, let me go over here. By the way, a couple of things to note here. So we do have some school closures. A lot of universities are closing. I'm not going to be able to list every single one. I'm pretty sure UCF is now closed for the rest of the week, if I'm not mistaken. Marion County schools would be closed Wednesday and Thursday. So if you're in Marion County, it sounds like all the schools there will be closed at least Wednesday or Thursday. And they're going to be open tomorrow. That's at least what I'm seeing here. Or Orange County Public Schools beginning Tuesday, all after school activities are closed. And then beginning on Wednesday, all schools and facilities will be closed, and extracurricular activities will be canceled through Thursday. So Wednesday and Thursday again for that area. University of Central Florida classes are canceled on Wednesday, and it sounds like Thursday as well. And operations are expected to begin on Friday, so that's another thing there. Again, we have a lot of schools that are closed. Make sure, again, try to look at your own county if you're in the state of Florida. There's also in Volusia County, there are, for all county schools, extracurricular activities are canceled for the rest of the week. No school closures have been announced in that county other than Bethune-Cookman University. That one's, at least at this point, been mandatory evacuated as of, I believe, today. So other than that, I'm not seeing anything too new about that county. And Polk County Public Schools will be closed on Tuesday and Wednesday as of right now. So, yeah, we got several school closures. There's more than just that, but that's just a few of them. What about the University of Miami? I have not heard anything about University of Miami. I would assume that they're not going to cancel classes because this storm is likely going to stay off to the north and west. Anything for Miami would just be the potential for heavy rain, maybe a little bit of isolated flooding rains as well. That's really my only concern right now for the Miami area. Sarasota probably will get hit hard. Yeah, so right now the current forecasted track, and really where I think this will make landfall, is going to be somewhere in this region here. I, again, don't think this is going to make landfall in the Panhandle anymore. It just seems very unlikely. So basically from about the Big Bend back through about Cape Coral is really the region right now that we have that cone of uncertainty. And what the cone of uncertainty means is that this is the area of where this storm may make landfall. There's, again, a lot of uncertainty of where it will still at this point, but we will probably have better details in the next 24 hours. After this passes through Cuba, we should have a much more specific track and location of where this will make landfall. But as as of right now, again, it could make landfall from Cape Coral all the way back up through about Panama City. But from my understanding, I do not think it's going to make landfall this far to the north. It will probably make landfall somewhere in this region here. That's pretty much what I'm thinking at this point. But obviously, Cone of Uncertainty says otherwise. It's a little bit larger, but that's my thinking as of right now in terms of where this might make landfall. Yeah, it's a pretty large area. Again, we're still looking at a very... By the way, this hurricane is massive. If we just go ahead and... Let me go and measure this. I'm not entirely sure what the actual dimensions of this is. I haven't looked really at all today on that. But this is a look at the... Just kind of the width here from the very far outer bands. I mean, it's about 600 to 700 miles wide. But if we're just talking about like the actual width itself, it's probably around 600 miles, 500 to 600 in that range. So it's a massive hurricane. And again... This is kind of my biggest concern for really the entire state of Florida would be the rain potential this would bring to the state of Florida. That's why I'm really concerned about the flash flooding potential across almost the entire peninsula of Florida. The Panhandle, not nearly as much, but obviously the flooding rains, in my opinion, is the biggest concern as of right now. And we're already beginning to see the first showers and storms up there through central and southern Florida. You can see it here on the infrared imagery. We're already starting to see some showers and storms there from about Miami to Key West, all the way back through Tampa, and it's starting to go up closer to Jacksonville here pretty soon. So we're already beginning to see a lot of rain out there. So it is definitely something to be watching as this continues to move off to the north and northeast. And the rain is honestly my biggest concern out of anything for the rest of Florida. If you're along the west coast, though, storm surge and as well as the potential for extreme winds are my biggest concerns there, along with the flooding potential as well. Because there might be some areas that do get potentially up to 20 inches of rain. It's definitely not out of the question at this point. So that's what we're currently looking at in terms of the threat level there. D, I'm not aware of any cancellations quite yet, but I'll keep you posted. Apparently, Evacuation Zone A has to evacuate. That's the latest, by the way. So if you're Evacuation A in Tampa, that's at least from what I know that you have to evacuate. That's what it's at least been ordered. Obviously, you should not try to wait this out or whatever, because this is a very dangerous storm. Some things, by the way, if you are in Florida, I want to give you a few preparation tips if you are in Florida right now, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get hit by this storm. I don't know what the implications are for me. Well, I can give you a few little things that you should really do at this point before the storm hits. That includes having food and water on hand. Again, make sure you have food that is, non-perishable and whatnot. Make sure you have food that will last a while, so, you can obviously get through this sort of situation. Having plenty of water as well is a big thing that you really need. I have plenty of water. I've already prepared myself. I have plenty of water here in Florida. Keep your gas tank full. That I've already failed to do because my tank is almost empty right now, but I do have to get gas. Radio batteries and phone chargers. Make sure you have all that stuff prepared. Medicine and prescriptions, and as well as cash on hand. But obviously, that's the main thing as of right now for what you need to be prepared for. So that's what we're looking at right now in terms of at least preparing for the storm as it continues to move off closer to Florida. And it's really, you got to do that stuff like within the next day. You should not wait until last minute, because obviously the stores are going to probably be empty at some point pretty soon, or probably not empty, but you know what I mean. They're going to be pretty hard to find certain things, and gas lines are going to be extremely long by the time it comes Thursday and whatnot. So just make sure you're doing those things now. A little bit of a better graphic, by the way. I'm going to try to see if I can pull this up on the screen. It might be a little bit blurry. Let's go and change this back over to the tropics, and let's go over to this. So this is a look at the watches and warnings. I'm not sure if I'm able to show this really well, but you get the general idea. It's kind of a small screen. I'll try to fix it later. But again, hurricane watch in effect up here. That's north of Tampa. Again, Tampa Bay is currently under a hurricane warning. There's also an ongoing tropical storm warning in that dark red shaded area, and the light red shaded area is all tropical storm watches. So again, tropical storm watches basically mean tropical storm conditions are possible within the next 48 hours. A tropical storm warning means it is likely within the next 36 hours. Same thing goes for hurricane watches and warnings as well. So that's what we're looking at as of right now. And I have another graphic I want to kind of show. It's hard to show. I'm going to go ahead and try to draw it to the best of my abilities here. But this is a graphic that the National Weather Service of Tampa Bay has. And they are basically showing what the wind speeds will likely be in certain areas. So let's go and kind of draw this out. So initially, the highest wind area basically, so winds that could exceed 110 miles per hour with the potential for, again, winds 111 miles per hour or greater would be in this white area and just off to the west. So Tampa and Tampa Bay, Sarasota included for the potential for category 3 force winds or higher. Wind gusts could even be higher than that. We do have a red shaded region just outside of that. I'm trying to draw this again to the best of my ability. It goes back through about here. back through Cape Coral. Anywhere here in west could see the potential for at least hurricane force winds or greater. And again, we're talking about potential for major, category 3 force winds in this region here. And in this region here, we're talking about the potential for category 1 force winds or greater. Outside of there, we're typically going to be talking probably around, at least as of right now, tropical storm force winds. That would include almost the rest of Florida that we're looking at for the potential for at least tropical storm force winds. Again, Jacksonville, Palm Bay, West Palm Beach also going to be that possibility for some tropical storm force winds as well. Again, it's a pretty large area, so that's what we're looking at as of right now for that potential. And again, potential for major flooding exists in this area here. Let's go back over to it. And yeah, this area here, the red shaded region, is your area where we have the highest potential for major flash flooding. And again, that would be anywhere from Gainesville, Jacksonville, Port Orange, Orlando, Palm Bay, Sarasota, Tampa, as well as Tampa Bay, and as well as Spring Hill. Those are the areas that are included as of right now in that potential. Thank you, Immortal, by the way, for the $20 super sticker. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. All right, let me go back over to here. And let's go back over to here. I'll go ahead and show the satellite imagery again. This is, again, a look at the satellite imagery with this storm. From earlier. And again, it's a very impressive looking hurricane. Again, it's a category 2 hurricane if you're just tuning in, with sustained winds currently around 100 miles per hour. Wind gusts are a little bit higher. It's going to make landfall in Cuba most likely tonight. So that's what we're forecasting as of right now. All right, let me get to some questions. I haven't really gotten to any, so let me do that real quick. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. I'll try to get to them. When's the tornado potential start? The tornado potential starts as early as tonight. The first area in line for an isolated tornado threat is the Key West. Going into tomorrow, that threat will exist from Tampa, basically near Interstate 4, and back down to the south. It's, again, a few tornadoes are possible at this point. That's what we're looking at as of right now. And then going into Wednesday, that threat goes all the way back up near Jacksonville. Let me go and actually pull up the graphic here. Probably be easier to just do that. This is the day 3 outlook. So you can see the tornado potential, at least on Wednesday, currently includes areas in Daytona Beach, Palm Bay, Tampa, Cape Coral, and elsewhere. Marginal threat from Jacksonville and as well as Miami are all included in a low-end chance for maybe an isolated tornado or 2. That's what we're looking at as of right now in terms of that tornado potential across Florida. If worst case happens, will Delaware? No, you're not. Delaware will be probably fine. At this point, the worst case scenario for any of this would basically be, let me try to get, yeah, let's go and use this color. So worst case scenario is that this makes landfall near Sarasota to begin with, and eventually it goes out to sea like this into the Atlantic Ocean. And then from there, worst case scenario is this rides right along the East Coast. That's worst case scenario, which is very unlikely that would happen. But we were definitely pretty much in the line for one of the worst case scenarios. That's basically it going towards Tampa. And that's what we do not need or want right now with this hurricane. That's something that is a big negative. We do not want this going towards Tampa because, again, if this goes further to the north, which I've mentioned a few times, there is a lot more shear into the northern Gulf of Mexico, which can really weaken this system before it makes landfall, for example, up here near Panama City. That potential, though, is now going down. We're most likely going to see a landfall somewhere along the west coast or maybe up into the Big Bend. Beyond that, though, if it goes again into Florida, like near Sarasota or into Tampa, it's most likely going to be a category 3 hurricane at least, or around a category 2 or 3, somewhere in that range most likely, if it were to do that, because there's really not a whole lot of shear to rip this system apart. We have a lot more shear, though, back up into here. So that's what we're currently looking at as of right now in terms of that threat. So, and storm surge in Tampa is 5 to 10 feet. Let me go and pull up that graphic again. Over to here. And yeah, let's look at the storm surge map. So again, if you're just tuning in, we have a big update on the storm surge. We have an entire forecast now for Florida. This will maybe increase, by the way. This is not an official forecast right now, or it's an official forecast, but it might increase as we get closer. So again, back up in areas like the Big Bend, we can reasonably expect 1 to 3 feet just southeast basically of the Panama City region, back through about Suwannee River, 2 to 4 feet potentially, back all the way through Anclote River, potential for 5 to 10 feet, or excuse me, 5 to 8 feet of storm surge exists. And then in Tampa Bay, we have that potential for 5 to 10 feet of storm surge. That again may increase as we get closer, which is why you are urged, if you are under an evacuation order, evacuate. You do not want to be along the coastline, especially if you're in the Tampa area. This is, again, a very dangerous situation. Hope is that this goes up here and just weakens as it runs into all that shear that I was mentioning before, but the likelihood, again, of that happening seems to be quite low right now. So you really want to be prepared for the worst case scenario, which is that this might make landfall somewhere near Tampa. And again, the potential long-term, whether it goes in the Atlantic Ocean or turns up inland, is a big question, but we'll have to watch that closely. Back through areas from about, I believe, Sarasota through Bonita Beach, the potential for about 4 to 8 feet of storm surge exists here. And also the potential for 3 to 5 feet of storm surge exists just down here through East Cape Sable, and then the Key West region. 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is currently forecasted. There is storm surge forecast already for the East Coast. Up to 1 foot is possible, really up and down the west or East Coast, excuse me, of Florida. But there's another area that's outlined here for 2 to 4 feet of storm surge from about the Sound. I'm probably not saying that right. Back through about the Flagler and Volusia County line. So that's what we're looking at as right now in terms of the storm surge across this region. And also, by the way, if you haven't already seen, the flooding potential with the system is pretty extreme. Again, we're talking the highest rainfall totals as of right now will probably be around Tampa Bay, and highest rainfall totals are likely going to stay just off the coast, but that could change. Right now, up to 20 to 25 inches of rain may fall just off the coast, but that obviously could maybe shift east. It might even shift west. The hope is that it continues to shift west, but obviously that's a big question mark as of right now. Beyond that, the potential for up to 10 inches of rain does exist on the east coast of Florida, near Jacksonville. Also near the Flagler area has that potential. So Flagler County definitely has that potential as well for maybe up to 10 inches of rain. So that's our biggest concerns as of right now in terms of rain as well. It's kind of in addition to the storm surge potential. By the way, we don't have a chat moderator tonight, so I do apologize. Let me find this real quick. I was wondering if the rotation of the storms in the northeast are from the jet stream. They might be from the low-level jet, which could be associated with that jet stream. So, yeah, Jeff, that's definitely a possibility. I'm going to try to get some more questions here. Again, if you have specific questions about a specific location, like, let's say, what can I expect in Orlando? I'm going to give you basically the same answer. The potential for, like, flooding rains does exist, potentially some tropical storm force winds. I can't give you specific details, though, yet, because we're just not at that point. Basically, by tonight or even to tomorrow, we'll probably have better and more specific details, because the track is still pretty uncertain from last night. It has not really changed a whole lot. The only things to note from last night is that this track has shifted further east, and we're not seeing the potential for that. Basically, the potential in the Panhandle landfall is much lower now. We are most likely going to see a landfall from the Big Bend back through the west coast of Florida. That chance has increased. The Kona shifted further east as well, and it's most likely going to probably be a Category 3 hurricane just off the coast, and this hurricane may also stall off the coast of Tampa, which could bring very dangerous flooding rains to this region as well. So there's a lot of obviously big updates, but those are really the most crucial updates as of right now with the system. It's supposed to slow down due to a Canadian cold front. Basically, a strong cold front will eventually kind of slow the system down. That's why it's forecasted as of right now to slow down. By the way, if you've not already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to like the video. Again, it helps to get this out to more people. Appreciate it. All right, let me back over to here. Do you think it'll move west or east? You mean the cone of uncertainty? Right now, I honestly would probably continue to see that this cone will likely kind of shrink into probably this area here. That is my thinking, but obviously things may change in between now and then. The next computer model runs come out in a couple of hours, so we'll have more information by then. But I got rid of him, by the way. Thank you. All right, so if you are in the Sarasota and Tampa area, I have a lot of questions about that region. Again, follow mandatory evacuations. If you have an evacuation order and you're along the West Coast, so Tampa, Sarasota, for example, you're gonna want to follow those evacuation orders. You don't want to just wait this out. If you're not being mandatory evacuated or recommended or something like that, you want to start thinking, you know, am I going to? There's a potential that really you could get some evacuation orders in this area, but just follow local orders, because I'm not going to be able to give you advice on whether you should or shouldn't evacuate. It's kind of one of those personal decisions, and it's also a decision that people, you know, like for example, the officials may like basically say you should evacuate. So if you get that sort of order, I do recommend that you evacuate, but obviously it's not, you know, required by any means, but it's definitely really recommended that you should if you get those evacuation orders. From what I know, at least in the Tampa region, we do already have some evacuation orders in, I believe it's evacuation zone A, if I'm not mistaken. So near Tampa and Tampa Bay, that is a region that I'm aware of there being at least some sort of evacuation orders now. So at this point, though, that's literally the only area that I actually am aware of there being some sort of evacuation orders in the Florida region. Other than that, I'm not aware of any others. I know there's a lot of schools closing for sure. I've heard a lot of school closings at this point, so that's what I know for as of right now. Thank you, Kaiser, by the way, for becoming a Storm Chaser member. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Will Fort Myers be under a evacuation order? I couldn't tell you that. Again, I'm not aware of any. I don't know a whole lot about the evacuation stuff beyond just, you know, if there's an evacuation order, you should evacuate. I don't personally know beyond really my current knowledge that of what might be evacuated next. It's kind of one of those things that officials will make that decision at some point. But there are hurricane warnings now along the West Coast, so and you should really just follow your local orders and whatnot, though. That's the biggest thing I can recommend at this point. What threats could happen for the Mid-Atlantic. Mid-Atlantic is a long-term threat. Really, the only concern would be the potential for a few tornadoes, like a tornado potential, basically, and obviously the potential for extreme rainfall, but that's long-term. It's kind of hard to predict that far out, especially for the Mid-Atlantic region at this point. So can't really put a whole lot right now on the long-term forecast, but keep you updated. Yeah, I heard the NFL game, the practice has apparently been moved to Miami. That's all I've heard. So yeah, there's obviously going to be implications for sports teams and whatnot in Tampa from the, again, those sort of things are going to be kind of coming out over the next few days. So that's at least what's expected across that area. So again, we'll see what happens from there. All right, cool. Moving back over to here real quick. Let's see if we have any new updates. The next advisory comes out in 30 minutes. I plan to be live for the advisory at 8 p.m. Again, my plan is that I'm going to end the live stream around about 8:15, 8:20 or so, and then I'll go back live around 9:30. I'm going to take a little break so I can eat dinner, and then we'll do another live stream from about 9:30 up until about midnight or so, kind of what we did last night, so we can get the 11 p.m. advisory in as well. So that's my current plan, just for an FYI. So current plan, again, live stream will go for probably another 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour, and then we'll do another live stream from about 9:30 to midnight. Fell asleep during last night's live stream. Nice. All right, let's go back over to the live radar real quick. Live radar, this is a look at the live radar. Let's go ahead and take this off. I've been kind of showing it for a while. So this is a look at the live radar. We obviously have some showers and storms. We're beginning to see, again, the outer bands actually reach areas in the Florida Keys. And a few showers and storms. Obviously, these could potentially produce an isolated tornado threat or water spout threat, at least across the Florida Keys. That's currently one of the concerns today. There's obviously a marginal threat for severe weather right now across areas along the Florida Keys. Other than that, we have some other storm activity. A lot of this is just from a lot of the moisture. We are definitely starting to see some more shower and storm activity developing in areas in Central Florida, for example. We're already beginning to see some rainfall here near Tampa right now. So obviously, there's a lot of rain out there already beginning across this region. So one of those things to keep in mind is that we're going to see this accumulate over the next several days in terms of rainfall totals. We'll probably end up seeing, again, pretty much across a lot of Florida, rainfall totals will at least probably be around 4 to 5 inches, if not even higher in some areas. Again, Daytona Beach, Tampa, and Jacksonville are kind of the areas that we're probably going to see probably some of the higher rainfall totals. So Tampa, especially this area, has the highest potential for rain, but the overall major flooding risk right now is across this area of Florida. So again, that'd be just south of Jacksonville, back through Daytona Beach into Palm Bay, about Cape Coral or so. This is the official forecast. Let's just go put that on the screen again. And it's that red shaded region, again, that has the highest potential, at least on Wednesday, of flash flooding. That is our moderate threat for flash flooding. That goes from Gainesville back through Daytona Beach, Orlando, Haines or Haines City, Ocala, Spring Hill, Tampa, Sarasota, and Palm Bay, basically all included in that moderate threat as of right now. I actually do have another graphic I kind of forgot to show here. Let's go over to this. This is a graphic that I made earlier. It's not an official forecast, but it is a graphic that I'm going to show just for those that are wondering on power outage potentials at this point across Florida. Basically, red means likely, the orange means possible, and then yellow means like unlikely to possible, somewhere in that range. So we're basically looking at the potential for the highest power outage potential would be from about Cape Coral back through Tampa and all the way back through about the Big Bend of Florida up this region. So that's our red shaded region for at least likely to see power outages. There's an orange shaded region. For some reason, this is yellow. That should be orange. But this is our other area that's basically possible in the terms of power outages. So that'd be from Orlando back through near Cape Coral and all the way back through about Panama City. And then that yellow shaded region means unlikely to somewhat possible. That'd be for Jacksonville, Miami, Palm Bay, Melbourne, those areas, and as well as back through around the Panama City area. Again, just one little graphic to show, but it is a potential for power outages, at least in Florida. Just, again, not an official forecast, but definitely something to keep in mind if you're in Florida. They are more likely than not, by the way, to happen along the West Coast. It's almost guaranteed that you'll see some sort of power outages there, especially if, again, you're in the Tampa or Sarasota area. It seems overly likely that'll happen there. Let's go back over to this, and we'll put it on there. Here's another look, by the way, again, at our ongoing hurricane. This is, again, Hurricane Ian. Last night, it was Tropical Storm Ian. Now it's Hurricane Ian with sustained winds around 100 miles per hour as of the latest update. Our next update comes out in not even 30 minutes, so stay tuned. Hey, thanks, Jamtree. Appreciate it. I'll be staying safe, don't worry. Yeah, again, I'm in Florida, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Thank you, Katie. I didn't see anything significant for Cape Coral, really. Cape Coral is an area that we could see some significant threats. Let me go back over to... I have to keep changing over here. So we'll go back to this graphic. This is a look at the rainfall totals that are forecasted. Cape Coral, as of right now, is forecasted somewhere in the 4 to 6 range, so 4 to 6 inches possible. Obviously, we could see higher amounts than that. We also could see lower amounts than that. Storm surge, though, is a potential along the coast. So if you're near Cape Coral, there is a potential between 4 to 8 feet of storm surge near the beach. That is our biggest concern, really, along the West Coast, along with the extreme wind potential. Now, I don't have a map that will show the actual winds. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I don't have an actual map that'll show like the highest winds, but Cape Coral is currently forecasted to see up to around hurricane force winds, if not maybe slightly higher than that. That's the current forecast from the Tampa Bay National Weather Service, that there will probably be somewhere near or around hurricane force winds in Cape Coral. Highest winds currently forecasted would basically be in this area, so around Tampa Bay, as well as near St. Petersburg, and as well as back down through around the area of Sarasota. We'll have that potential for Category 3 force winds or greater. That's the concern really along the West Coast as of now. And again, things may change as we get closer, but we are definitely looking at some pretty significant storm surge potential for Cape Coral as of right now. Other than that, tornado potential does exist. As I mentioned before, that tornado threat is definitely something to monitor very closely over the next few days. It's obviously one of those things that you kind of put in the back of your mind with a hurricane, but it is obviously a very legitimate threat. We do have a slight risk of severe weather again across a pretty decent portion of Florida. And again, here's your infrared imagery as of right now with this storm. A lot of convection, as I mentioned before. It is a developing storm, or a developing hurricane, I should say, and it will be moving towards Cuba over the next 24 hours, and it will probably make landfall tonight, but it's going to potentially become a major hurricane over the next few hours, so that'll be something to monitor pretty closely. Again, here's a look at the latest computer model runs. A lot of them, again, bring it into Florida. Obviously, all of them are bringing it into Florida, but a few of them are bringing it towards areas like Tampa through Cape Coral, so that's kind of our range right now with these computer models. Again, we'll have another update on this in 2 hours. We'll do a second live stream for that. And also, in other areas to mention and kind of note here, we have a few other areas. So again, back through Tampa is where we have a lot of computer models agreeing on a landfall there. There are a few that bring it up into the Big Bend for landfall as well. And there's also a couple that bring it as far to the west as areas near Panama City. So that is what we're currently looking at as of right now in terms of that potential. But let me see if I have any other graphics. This is another graphic on rainfall totals, by the way. This will give you a bit more of an idea of what you can expect in your location from at least the Weather Prediction Center in terms of estimated rainfall totals as of right now, which includes areas like Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, Gainesville, Tampa, Sarasota, Palm Bay, Orlando, etc. But obviously, these are just estimates. It's not official as of right now, but it is definitely something to keep in mind. And I do find this to be somewhat of a broad forecast. So overall, it's not specific and kind of down to the point. So areas like Pensacola, for example, I don't expect them to really see any rain. And Panama City, I doubt we'll see that much rain either, unless this takes a westerly track, but that's pretty unlikely as of right now. But that's what we're looking at in terms of rainfall totals, but feel free to pause the screen if you want to see your location there. But highest rainfall totals currently estimated to just be off the coast. That obviously could shift a little bit further east or west. It depends on what happens here over the next 24 hours. And then back through Jacksonville as well as Daytona Beach. There's also a couple of chances there for maybe up to a foot of rain almost. So a lot of areas to watch there over the next really few days as we get closer to the system making landfall. Polk State College, by the way, is officially closed for Wednesday and Thursday. So just a heads up. That is our latest update. So that's an official update, by the way. Again, that is now what we know. And I know another school that was potentially going to close was Daytona State College. I'm not entirely sure yet if they've closed. I have no clue, but there's another school that I think was kind of on the cusp of closing. There's a lot of schools that are currently taking the safe route closing, which I am all for, by the way. I think really any school that's in the path of this or may see pretty significant impacts in terms of flooding, wind, etc. Really should consider closing at this point. It is, again, a pretty dangerous situation that we're looking at with the system. Again, we'll have to see what happens, but more than likely than not, we're going to probably see a lot more colleges close here over the next few days. Also, OCPS schools, not sure what that is. Let me figure this out. OCPS schools are closed Wednesday and Thursday. I have absolutely no clue where that is or what that is. That's Orange County, sorry. Okay, so Orlando County Public Schools closed Wednesday and Thursday. That's our latest update there. Let's see if we have that update on the other one real quick. The Daytona State College has not made an announcement, by the way. Just an FYI. Hey, how you doing, Storm Chaser? Welcome. Doing well. Stay safe up there. All right, let's go back over to here. And let's just go back to the infrared imagery. We're starting to get to nighttime, so we're not going to be able to see the satellite imagery anymore, but satellite imagery is actually pretty cool what you can see during the day with this system. It's really, again, rapidly strengthened over the last 24 hours. This is classified as rapid intensification, just due to the fact of what we've seen over the last 24 hours or so is obviously rapid intensification. We went from a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm now all the way up to almost a Category 3 hurricane in the span of 24 hours. So there's been a pretty impressive strengthening of the system here over the last little while. Yeah, here's kind of a little bit of a look at the track and whatnot. Keep that up here for a second. All right, let me get some chat questions again. If you have any questions, again, feel free to leave them in the chat. I'll try to get to them. Where's Jim now? I think Jim Cantori's in Clearwater still. I don't think he's changed locations. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. I typically look at Twitter and at least somebody will mention it where he goes. And most people mention where he goes and whatnot because of the more than anything, just because of, you know, they don't want them in their town. You know, whenever Jim Cantori comes to your town, you just don't want him there because you know something bad's coming. It's the big meme out there. All right, cool. All right, our next update, by the way, our next advisory from the National Hurricane Center comes out at 8 o'clock. I don't expect any major changes, by the way, in this advisory, but we might see something. We'll see. The cone may shrink a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see. Latest update, by the way, we may see as much as up to a foot of rain off the coast. Let's go and kind of outline this for you. So another update, and this is again my concern as of right now with really a couple of areas. So first off, we will probably see a foot to 2 feet of rain just off the coast of Tampa. That is a big concern if it goes any further east, because this system again will stall most likely heading into Thursday, or at least really slow down. Also, back up near Jacksonville and Deltona region, so along this Interstate 95 stretch, there's also a potential for up to a foot of rain in that region. So we have a couple of areas to watch. Obviously along the west coast as well is a big concern in terms of flooding rains. That's what we're looking at as of right now in terms of the rain potential. I'll just leave it at that. The rain potential is really the highest in those regions as of right now in terms of extreme rainfall that could potentially bring some pretty decent flash flooding. Again, that would be to areas right along the east coast, back up near Deltona and Jacksonville, and then also along the west coast from about the Big Bend back through about Tampa is currently the forecasted region of where we could see some extreme rainfall across those regions. And the next update, again, the next advisory comes out in about 20 minutes. We will be live for that. We'll keep you updated. But it's forecasted to go down to 4 miles per hour, by the way, once it gets closer to Tampa. So once this storm, this hurricane, it's most likely going to be a Category 3 at that time. Once it gets pretty close to Tampa, it's going to be moving around 4 to 5 miles per hour. It's not going to be moving fast. So that's what the forecasted speed is as of right now. Couple of little updates there. What category is Ian? Ian is currently a Category 2 hurricane. It will likely become a Category 3, though, within the next few hours. It might become a Category 3. Really, it could become a Category 3 realistically as early as 11 p.m. So that's our next, basically, big advisory. We have a bit more of a small advisory coming out at 8 o'clock. I'll be live for that, and then I'm going to probably do a second live stream. Again, I mentioned this before, but this will be the first live stream tonight. I'll have a second one from 9:30-ish up until about 12 to 1, somewhere in that time frame. So we'll have a couple of live streams tonight. This won't be the only one. But it is forecasted to become a Category 4 hurricane just after Cuba. So sustained winds could reach as high as 140 miles per hour. That's currently the thinking. Wind gusts could get as high as 170 miles per hour just off the coast, basically. So that's the big concern as of right now with at least the wind speeds. And they will be pretty high again, pretty much close to Tampa if it takes that route, which is currently the forecasted route with this system. All right, I'm back over to here. See if we have any new updates on Twitter. All right, so no new updates as of right now. We'll keep you updated again when we get the next update. The next update comes out in about 20 minutes, and I'm not seeing anything new as of now, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, the next update, the only thing I can imagine there being against the 8 p.m. intermediate update basically means that we're going to see like a small update in terms of what to expect with the system. But I would basically be thinking at this point the only update that we'll see at the 8 p.m. advisory would probably just be a small cone change would be about it. I don't expect a whole lot beyond that, though, at this point. But we'll see what happens. Go over to the National Hurricane Center real quick. We'll see. So the next advisor would probably give us a little bit more of an idea of the maybe a little bit of a shrinkage of the cone potentially. So maybe a little bit more specific on detail. Again, the next spaghetti models run is at like 9:30. So we'll be live for that when that happens. Hey, Tori, how you doing? Welcome back. And again, if you're just tuning in again for the first time, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below if not already. And we'll keep you updated with the latest on Hurricane Ian as it continues to move off to the north. Yeah, a ton of hurricane warnings. There are hurricane warnings in this red area here. I'll kind of go and zoom back in on here. Let's go and take off the infrared imagery so I can... All right, so there we go. So there are hurricane warnings. Our hurricane warnings include Tampa and Sarasota as of right now. I think it actually might go this far south. So Sarasota and Tampa are the main areas included in a hurricane warning. We have a hurricane watch, which is this pink line and includes the counties here just west of Ocala. For those in Spring Hill as well for a hurricane watch. There's also a tropical storm watch in effect for areas just southeast of Panama City, back through areas in the Big Bend. There is also a tropical storm warning in effect for areas in Cape Coral, East Naples, back through southwest Florida. Key West is in a current ongoing tropical storm warning. Just west of Key West, there's a hurricane warning. And there's also a tropical storm watch in effect up and down the east coast of Florida from about Brunswick, Georgia, back through about West Palm Beach is the region that we have a tropical storm watch ongoing as of now. And this is also a This is the National Weather Service advisory. So another thing to kind of see here is that we're going to be probably looking at tropical storm watches across this region. So again, pretty much eastern and central Florida. Tropical storm warnings are now in effect for Dundee. So southwest for Orlando are now in tropical storm warnings. And obviously these tropical storm watches will likely get upgraded to tropical storm warnings as well. Just kind of one of the things that you need to note there. Storm surge watches are also in effect across the coastlines, and that also includes the East Coast, so Brunswick and Jacksonville. Hurricane warnings in effect for Tampa, Sarasota, and back through Cape Coral as of right now. I believe there's a hurricane watch, and that's about it. Hurricane watch, storm surge warning, and tropical storm warning for Cape Coral as of now. Watches are kind of all over the place on here, but gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect. Go back over to here. Yeah, here's a current look at Ian as of right now. Again, it's approaching Cuba. If you see these little red outlines up here to the north, that is Cuba. I know you cannot see it, but that is Cuba. Actually, I think I can fix this. Let me go and fix this real quick. There you go. So you can kind of see Cuba a little bit better now. That's a look at Cuba. Again, back up here to the north is obviously Florida, but it's a little bit better of a look at it. You can see Cuba there. Obviously, hurricane warnings are those red outlines, and then there's a tropical storm warning in effect for central Cuba as of right now. Here's a look at all the storm activity blowing up as of right now across just south of Cuba. Hey, thank you, Tori, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate it. Hey, you're good, Tori. Appreciate you tuning in. Yes, Somni, I'll be live again at 9:30, I think is when I'm going to start my next live stream. So, yeah. But again, this live stream will go until about 8:15, 8:30 Eastern, so another 45 minutes or so. And I'll have a second live stream beginning at 9:30. And again, that is because we have our first advisory, our intermediate advisory, coming out at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to take a break and eat. And then at 9:30, we'll have our next advisory come out at 11 p.m. So I'll basically go over what I talked about in this forecast with all the new updates that we'll have, because we'll have a lot more updates at the next live stream and all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned. Again, make sure to click the bell icon down below. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified as well for when I do that live stream. That'll be at 9:30 or so. Thanks, CH. I appreciate it. Really, Elizabeth? Really? That's crazy. Appreciate it. All right, let me get some other questions here. You know the storm surge for Cape Coral? Cape Coral is currently forecasted. Let me hop over to it. Cape Coral, as of now, is forecast between 4 to 8 feet of storm surge as of right now. So you can see back down near Bonita Beach, for example, between 4 to 7 feet, 5 to 8 feet from Englewood back through about the middle of Longboat Key is our current storm surge forecast. Did I just update? The next National Hurricane Center advisory comes out at 8 o'clock. I don't think they've made an update yet. It typically comes out right around 8 o'clock. So yeah, they haven't been putting out an update yet. The update comes out in 15 minutes or so. It's not going to be a big update, I don't think. Our bigger update will be at 11 o'clock, most likely. But we'll see. You never know. Cone may shrink a little bit. That might be the big thing. Oh, yeah, I actually remember you. That's funny. Appreciate it. Hey, Jackson, how you doing? Welcome back. What winds are we looking at landfall? They could go as high as Category 3 strength near Tampa. Elsewhere, I'll kind of... Actually, I think I have a better idea here on the... Let's go and do this again. Alright, this is a look at the wind radius, at least forecasted as of right now. Again, things will change, but we're currently looking at most likely, this is just long term, so kind of give you an idea of what these circles mean. The blue means at least tropical storm force winds. So that would be anywhere from about, Palm Bay through about basically almost all of Florida is almost in that category. The purple, which is this other color, represents the potential for 60-mile-per-hour winds or greater. That's basically like a severe thunderstorm that's obviously elongated. And then also the pink area that's just southwest of Sarasota is the potential for maybe over basically category 1 strength or greater. That area here will be over, and just kind of give you an idea on the circle here, that would basically be over this area here near Tampa. So the best, basically the most likely scenario, I should say, in terms of at least hurricane force winds will most likely be in this Tampa area here. Now, the current forecast from the National Weather Service of Tampa currently includes this area here, so about Spring Hill through Tampa and Sarasota, to potentially see Category 3 strength winds or greater. That is 110 miles per hour or greater wind speeds across those areas, so Tampa and Sarasota and Spring Hill. Just outside of there, it's kind of in this region, the lines are not going to be exact, but Cape Coral is in that potential for maybe tropical storm, or at least Category 1 hurricane force winds or greater. I think that's like 74 miles per hour through 110 miles per hour. Outside of there, we're talking most likely just tropical storm force winds across the rest of Florida. But again, a lot of this depends on where this system tracks really over the next several days. So, but that's what we're looking at as of right now. And again, the cone of uncertainty is still very large. I would expect this does shrink a lot more, though, going into the 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock advisory tonight. All right, back over to here. Let's put on the red again. And let me get some chat questions. Again, if you have questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. CH, that's a good question. So Hurricane Fiona and Hurricane Ian are two different systems. Hurricane Fiona stalled a lot more. It basically almost stopped over Puerto Rico, which is why there's so much more rainfall to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. But this system is going to have some similarities. It's just not going to stall for nearly as long. It will stall near Tampa, so rainfall totals could reach 20 to 25 inches, but that would likely at this point, as of now, is forecasted to be off the coast of Florida. Inland, most areas at the highest right now are forecasted to peak around 15 inches of rain. But keep in mind, things will likely change as we get closer. It might go up or it might go down. So keep that in mind. Apparently we have a little bit of rotation apparently near Layton, Florida. Let's go take a look at that. Again, there's a tornado potential tonight, so we'll have to take a look at that. Let me go over to here. I think is that near Key West? Turn off the infrared again. And let's start off the 6-hour loop here. Let me see if I can pull up the radar here. So apparently we have some rotation on a storm already. Yeah, this is near Layton. So there's a little bit of rotation near Layton as of right now. It's not too strong, but there's a little bit of broad rotation here. Nothing too crazy. A couple of little areas, though. Again, this is going to be the concern with these outer bands, especially. We're going to probably see a little tornado potential with these. Tonight, again, overnight hours is the best chance for tornado potential in the Key West region. There is, again, a marginal threat for severe weather tonight. And let's hop back over to there. And here's a look at the tornado potential for tonight. Again, it's a low threat, but includes areas in Marathon and Key West and whatnot. So basically, again, the Florida Keys is what's included tonight. Going into tomorrow is a bit of a different story. We have a large slight risk from Tampa back through the Keys, Sarasota, Cape Coral, all included in that for maybe a few tornadoes. Other than that, Orlando, Fort Pierce, West Palm Beach, and Miami all included in a marginal threat for severe weather tomorrow. And the potential there is for a couple of tornadoes across that region. So that's what we're looking at as of right now. Latest wind report, by the way, from Marathon is a 39-mile-per-hour tropical wind gust. So we're beginning to already see tropical storm force winds arriving to the Keys. So again, that gives you a perspective on how large this system is how large this hurricane, I should say, is as of now. It's again very impressive in terms of its width and whatnot. It's a huge, huge storm that we're looking at here. No problem, CH. Can the cone shift more east? It probably will, Ethan. It probably will. My expectation at this point. Hey, no problem, Tori. Yeah, fly by. That would be due to the hurricane. I mean, typically we see a lot more. The overall waters will rise because of, like, you know, waves will get larger with this hurricane, leading to higher tides. And not just that, but also the potential for storm surge exists. So obviously it's just a big bad mix of stuff that we're probably going to see, especially along, again, the west coast of Florida. East coast of Florida, for example, the storm surge will not be nearly as high. As you may know, there is a tropical storm watch in effect. The only area that has a potential for storm surge as of right now is basically like the Flagler area up through Jacksonville, and as well as going into Georgia for right now for 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. Other than that, it's basically up to 1 foot across the entire southern and eastern side there of the coast. So again, from about Miami back up through, I believe, Cape Canaveral or so is like our up to 1 foot area. So Yeah, overall, storm surge is a big concern, especially in Tampa. As I already mentioned, we could see up to 10 feet of storm surge in Tampa, and that might go up. So at the 11 p.m. advisory, I would expect a brand new forecast on that in terms of what we can expect for the storm surge threat, which again seems pretty likely that will go up as we get closer. Again, our next advisory comes out in literally the next 10 minutes. So again, we'll have another update for you here in a few minutes with the latest information. If the cone shifts east or west, I'll give you an idea of what happens. Again, our biggest update will be at 11 p.m. tonight, though, so make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit the red button down below and subscribe, and also make sure you click the bell icon because I will be doing a second live stream tonight. This one will go to about 8:30. I'll do another one around 10 o'clock to kind of give you a breakdown on what to expect with our next advisory and the latest information on that. And obviously, the 11 p.m. advisory is much bigger than the 8 p.m. advisory. We typically get a much larger update with that one. So, hey, Connie, how you doing? Welcome back. Clean. Today's computer models are really what I expected. They are still a lot. There's still a lot of uncertainty. I've been saying it a lot, but I think the landfall is going to be somewhere in this region from the Big Bend back through about Sarasota, or maybe even as far south as Cape Coral. But I'm kind of eliminating the potential right now for the Panhandle. But obviously, there's still really a lot of time. Once it crosses Cuba, we'll have a much better idea of where this makes landfall. But beyond then, I mean, I'm really still kind of putting my thinking right now, at least on a landfall somewhere here on the west coast from about the Big Bend back through about Cape Coral. That would again include the Tampa region as well. And the European model again has been overly consistent with this. So yes, tropical storm watch is in effect for a lot of Orlando, or a lot of Florida. It goes all the way actually up the east coast now. It goes actually to Georgia. There's actually a tropical storm watch up there. Thanks, Clean. I appreciate it. Yes, Liam, there's a lot of news about school closures. I'm not going to be able to go over every single one, but... All right, update, by the way, for those, I believe in Tampa, we have a new evacuation order. So if you're in Tampa, just a heads up. If you are in evacuation... wait, let me figure this out. Yeah, so I think this is Tampa. Yeah, so if you're in evacuation zone B or C... mandatory evacuation orders have been issued for zones B and C, will be effective tomorrow at 7 a.m. So just heads up. If you are in Tampa, again, if you're in evacuation order B or C, you should evacuate no later than 7 a.m. tomorrow. That's basically Tampa Bay area. If you do not know what I'm even talking about, if you don't know what evacuation zone you're in, any of that sort of stuff, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat for you. But that's our latest evacuation order for Tampa. Again, that is that's on Twitter. I'll go and retweet it as well on my Twitter. So, yeah, that's our latest update, though. We officially have evacuation orders that have been issued for Tampa. We already had our evacuation order A issued. Now zone B and C have been issued. So, by the way, we're only one subscriber from 18,800. If you have not already, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I would appreciate it. And we're on the road to 20,000 subscribers now. And again, we'll keep you updated with the latest on all the tropical, or really hurricane, I should say, information as it comes. Again, we have our next advisory in 4 minutes. So you're going to want to stay tuned for the next National Hurricane Center advisory outlook. And then again, we'll have another one coming out at 11 p.m., which will be a bigger update, obviously, tonight. So we'll keep you updated with that one as well. Update with the latest information. But obviously, the next outlook comes out in about 4 minutes. We are still awaiting the official word on that, but see what happens. Thanks, Liam. Appreciate it. I gotta put it on Discord? Yeah, I can put the link on Discord. I'll put the evacuation order on Discord. I should really make an evacuation orders chat on Discord, but it's kind of hard to do that. I won't be able to update it all the time. No, Davey, it would not. Good thinking, though. Hey, Colin, how you doing? Welcome. You think the pressure has dropped more? It may have. The current pressure from the latest update was, let's see, at least from what I know, is 100 miles per hour was the sustained winds, the maximum sustained winds, and the pressure was 972 millibars at 5 p.m. We'll see if there's any update to that. It's still moving about 13 miles per hour off to the north-northwest. That's what we're looking at as right now in terms of, obviously, the overall winds and pressure and movement. But that might change. Again, that will probably change in the next few minutes. Still awaiting the 8 p.m. advisory, which will be coming out again in a couple of minutes. We are at 7:58 p.m. Typically comes out right at about 8 p.m. So, looking at us right now. I mean, I'm moving from Florida, and coming months. Hey, you can have your own beliefs in terms of weather. All I gotta say though is if you are in any of these areas that are under at least hurricane warnings or even watches, you should be watching this extremely closely. If you're along the beach or anywhere along the coastline, really anywhere that you could get impacted by storm surge especially, those are areas that you really want to make sure that you are taking those evacuation orders seriously. And yeah, I mean, again, storm surge is a huge threat with this storm, especially along the coastline. Inland, it's more of an extreme rainfall potential in terms of flooding rains and stuff like that. Again, rainfall totals could reach over a foot of rain in some areas, so that's our big concern in terms of flooding rains. Elsewhere, we're still looking at the potential for extreme winds, and again, that would be back up here near Tampa. And basically, this is where we could see Category 3 force winds near Sarasota and Tampa, that little region there. Outside of there, hurricane force winds could maybe extend as far east as Cape Coral and just southwest of Orlando, kind of. So other than that, a lot of tropical storm force winds outside of that. That's at least what's forecasted as of right now. Again, things will change as we get closer. Once the track becomes more refined and obviously a little bit more accurate. We're looking at is right now, though. New advisory's out. All right, let's take a look. For me, it's not out yet. Unless it is out. Maybe it is. At least for what I know, the advisory is not updated on the site yet, but should update here in a second. Alright, conditions in western Cuba are beginning to deteriorate with significant wind and storm surge impacts expected overnight. So that's the latest advisory update. Again, we're going to get our specific wind speeds, the new cone and whatnot here in just a moment. That usually takes a couple of extra minutes, so we'll have that information here for you in just a second. All right, so from somebody in the chat, I'm not 100% sure how accurate it is, but it's probably pretty accurate. The pressure is apparently dropped by 7 millibars down to 965. So that's the latest update from, at least via the chat. We have the pressure's down to 965 millibars. The wind speed, though, has not changed, but again, we'll confirm that here in a second. I'll have the latest update on that. And we'll see what the cone is as well in a moment, but yet to update. I might as well go back to this real quick for those that are just tuning in. This is a look again at the storm surge map for those that are wondering if you're in the impacted area for storm surge. We are looking at the worst storm surge again currently in Tampa, but if the track shifts further west or east, we could see this very well change. I would honestly expect that the Tampa Bay region will probably see a upgrade into the storm surge as long as this track stands true. Other than that, though, we're looking at those orange areas. That's representing your potential for storm surge as well, between 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. Again, about Bonita Beach back up through about Swanee River is kind of the area that we're looking at from at least 5 feet of storm surge, if not maybe as high as 8 feet of storm surge. Obviously in Tampa Bay, we're looking up to 10 feet. Also on the East Coast, if you're along the East Coast from about Brunswick through Flagler and Volusia County line, we're still looking at about 2 to 4 feet of storm surge there. That is a new upgrade, by the way. There was originally no forecast for that, so just a little update there. All right, let me back over to here real quick. We'll see if we have any new update, and not yet. But right now, I'm going to go back over to the map, and we will, obviously, again, we'll go back over there here in a second. Once we get that official advisory out, and if the cone has changed at all, I'll give you an idea if that's changed. But again, I think the 11 p.m. update will be much larger. While you're at it, make sure, again, if you're just tuning in, to hit that red button down below and subscribe. Again, we'll keep you posted with the latest information. I believe the cone has changed. I'm not sure if it's changed that dramatically, but at least on my map there, it looked like it changed a little bit. All right, so we have something to show you. Here's the outer bands. Actually, never mind. I can't show you. I'm back over to here. We have the outer bands, though, is actually going to Florida, by the way. If you're in Florida, that's what you're seeing right now, most likely, is those outer bands of rain. Just as a heads up, if you're just tuning in, again, we are currently awaiting the 8 p.m. advisory to see if there's been any cone shift in this advisory and any new updates at all. We'll have that again here in just a moment. We are just awaiting that information. Again, the latest update seems to be that this is now up to, it's still a Category 2 hurricane. Sustained winds are apparently still at 100 miles per hour, but the pressure has dropped down to 965. It was just a little while ago 972. So there's been a little bit of a drop in pressure. Other than that, I don't think there's been any major changes, at least to the current standing of the storm. But obviously, long term, we're probably going to be at least looking at some sort of difference in the cone. It's to some extent. I'm not sure what it'll be, but we'll see here in a second. Still awaiting that update. Miami will not see that significant of impacts from this. Now, Miami will see rain, but probably not too much beyond that. Hey, Gillette, I'm glad that you're packing up and getting out of there, by the way. That's obviously very good. Honestly, again, evacuating and taking those evacuation orders seriously is something that you really have to do, especially if you're in the Tampa and Sarasota area. We're looking at much more significant impacts there, most likely at this point, so... Tampa's already getting rain. Yes, Tampa is getting rain. That is not associated, by the way. The rain that you're seeing in Tampa, if you are in Tampa, is actually associated from the sea breezes, I'm pretty sure. It's actually not from the hurricane. Let me actually zoom in here real quick since we have a second. This is a look at the radar. Here's the last few hours. And yeah, this is, for the most part, I'm pretty sure just outflow driven. Yeah, there's a little bit of the outer bands, but it's a lot more of just the sea breeze is kind of controlling that. Other than that, you can kind of see the outer bands are also actually already in the Key West. The Key West is already reporting tropical storm conditions. Beyond that, though, you can see a lot of the outer bands as well back up in southern Florida as of right now. I think it would just look better if I took off that. So yeah, you can see the outer bands again across Florida as of right now. But again, the storm activity near Tampa is, I believe, from the sea breezes, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it's at least from outflow boundaries. So it's not from this hurricane. Directly, at least. But there's a little bit of rain there. Let's go back over to here, and let's go back to this zoom, and we'll take back off the radar for a second. Let me see if there's any new updates here. We'll take a look. All right, we have our 8 p.m. update on the track. Does not seem like it's changed at all. And no, it has not changed actually at all. So the cone has remained the same. And basically, the next update on the cone will probably be right at 11 p.m. And I would expect that we do have an actual cone. Apparently, we have an ongoing water spout. Let's go and see. That's actually potentially on the water right now. Let's go over to this. So apparently, we have a water spout right now. I have to take off this. It's getting kind of annoying. So this actually might be an ongoing water spout here in near the Key West area. Take a look here at the radar. And potentially a water spout ongoing, maybe north of Layton. This was an area that we had some rotation before. There actually might be a water spout right now ongoing. That is, again, over near north of Layton. Again, this would be heading towards southwest Florida, so maybe something to watch. But there might be a water spout ongoing there. Go to the Miami radar to kind of double check here. But somebody mentioned in chat there might be a water spout here. There's definitely some decent rotation, though, on that. And yeah, there might be actually a water spout there. Again, that is currently north of Layton. It will eventually go into southern Florida. Pretty rural area ahead of it. But yeah, don't see a whole lot of towns here. But basically very far south of Miami. It's where there's potentially a water spout. And again, there is a marginal threat for severe weather tonight. A couple of tornadoes possible, or water spouts along the Key West region. This is not tonight. This is tonight. There's a marginal threat of potentially an isolated tornado or two. If not, it's mostly going to be probably water spouts across this area since there's not a whole lot of land. Otherwise, though, as I said before, there is a slight risk of severe weather tomorrow from Tampa back through the Key West, just west of Miami, for the potential for a few tornadoes tomorrow. And there's also a marginal threat from Orlando back through Miami along the east coast of Florida. So that's what we're looking at is right now in terms of the severe weather potential. But yeah, let's go back over to the infrared imagery here, and let's go back over to this. So basically, the latest advisory, there's no major updates at all. I mean, it's actually a pretty minimal advisory at this point. We're not seeing any big changes in the track. There's actually 0 changes in the track at this point. The only thing that I'm seeing in terms of a change would basically just be what's going on right now, because the pressure has dropped down to 965 millibars is the, at least what I heard. Let me double check that, though. Yeah, it's down to 965 millibars. So that's our only change at this point. The pressure has dropped by 7. That's it. We haven't had any other new updates at this point, but again, we will be live for the 11 p.m. advisory. That'll have a lot more updates on what we just kind of had. So stay tuned for that. Again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, make sure to subscribe down below and click the bell icon so you're notified for that next live stream. Because again, I'll be doing a live stream for this one up until about 8:30, 8:45, and then I'll do a second one around 10 o'clock. So we'll do kind of a little split stream. That way I can eat. Thank you, Devin, by the way, for being a 2-month Tornado Chaser member. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, let me get some chat questions while we're at it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. Try to answer some of them while we are at it as of right now. A few questions in, and then we'll be live again for another 20 minutes or so, and then we'll probably end it, and then we'll go back live again at 10. So that's the plan. Thank you, Dave. Yes, I kind of went over it. Not a whole lot of changes to it. Let me actually double check real quick. I don't think there's been any major changes though to this forecast. It's been pretty minimal stuff, I would say. Yeah, there's no big updates. Again, I think our big advisory is going to come out at 11. That's when we typically have a lot more stuff update, and we have a lot more changes. And we can probably expect a lot of changes at the 11 p.m. update, because a lot more agreements will probably come together with these computer models. So West Cuba is forecasted to see winds that could peak around 150 miles per hour in terms of wind gusts, but otherwise we are at least expecting pretty much hurricane force winds across much of western Cuba. Otherwise, tropical storm force winds are basically expected just outside of that in central Cuba. Let me go ahead and turn this down a little bit so we can actually see what Cuba looks like. Now, here's a look at Cuba. And again, tropical storm warnings in effect as of right now across this region. And also here, I'm not entirely sure what the different regions are here. But other than that, there's near central Cuba, there's ongoing tropical storm warning. But again, we're going to probably see up to Category 3 force winds here upon landfall in Cuba tonight and going to the overnight hours. It is forecasted to be a hurricane basically sometime in the next 5 to 6 hours. So that's what's currently at least expected with the system as it tracks out to the north and yeah, basically northwest. It's like northwest as of right now. It's going to start turning a little bit more off to the north and northeast eventually, but that's what's at least expected as of right now in Cuba. Death, it's kind of hard to say right now. That's very long term. I couldn't really give you an idea on that, but as of right now, nothing is forecasted in at least the somewhat short term beyond the next, basically in the Atlantic tropics. There's nothing really forecasted beyond this one, at least in like the Gulf of Mexico region for now. Obviously things could change though. Latest models come in. They don't come in until 9 to 9:30 typically. I'll see if there's any actual models that have come in, and the European models actually coming in. We can actually go and take a look at that on this stream. So let's go and take a look at that. This is the latest European model run, which this is Texas. We're not in Texas. Let's go over to the tropics. So this is the latest European model run. It's not completely done yet. Let's see if anything's changed. And that is not looking good. That is definitely not looking good at all. The latest European model run now makes landfall in Tampa, or even just south of there. So that would not be a good sign if that were to happen. That is a big change from what the European model had only 6 hours ago. This is in comparison. It showed it would be kind of off the coast and stall. Now, in this scenario, it would bring much more extreme flooding, most likely. That would probably be off the coast, and that makes landfall up here in the Big Bend. Big change, though, to the European model in the latest run. And again, the European model has been the most consistent model by far over the last 7 days with tracking this storm and obviously now Hurricane Ian. But now it's showing landfall in Florida. So that is not really what we're looking for at this point. We're really hoping it would go further off to the north and west so it would weaken with that wind shear. But that is not a good sign by any means. Obviously, again, this is just one computer model run. Things might change. But again, we're getting closer to the time where we typically see these models become more consistent. Let's take a look at the rainfall totals real quick. And yeah, that would not be a good scenario if that were to happen. So let's hope that this does not happen. But that is a big difference from what we just saw in the latest model run, again, 6 hours ago. So that is a negative that we do not want to see. So another thing that we have to be kind of preparing for at this point. The wind gusts, by the way, Oh man, that's not something that you want. I mean, it's estimated now to be 125 in Sarasota. It might even be higher than that. This is typically underestimated. But yeah, the latest European model run is a big no-no. That's all I gotta say. That is not what we want to see in terms of a system going towards Florida. Again, this is a bit more of a closer look at it. And again, this is why I'm saying, seems like the west coast of Florida has a bit better of a chance to see landfall than anywhere up here right now. That is not what you want to see. Again, it's just one computer model run, no reason to panic, but just make sure, again, you're getting prepared. Again, this is a reason why you should be prepared, because the cone of uncertainty is just so large. But this is, again, the latest European model run, and it's definitely not something you want to see. And I'm not seeing any other computer model runs coming in anytime soon, but this is our latest one. So, man, that is a big change. That is not something you want to see, though. So, again, our next spaghetti models run, if you want to call it spaghetti models run, it's not really a spaghetti models run, but the next spaghetti models basically comes out at about 9 to 9:30 tonight, so we'll be live when that happens. This is a look at the current 18Z run. Again, computer models kind of range. Again, most of them on the West Coast. There's a couple up here in the Panhandle or Big Bend, but other than that, seems like the more likely scenario as of right now, again, will be on the West Coast of Florida. So, again, not something that you want to see. This is not a situation that we're really looking for. But again, this is the latest European model run. Things may change, but this is a big shift from what it just had 6 hours ago. So you can see the extreme rainfall that could come out of that too if it made landfall would potentially be very, very dangerous. So again, stay optimistic. Things could change, but that's what we're looking at as of right now. And the European model also brings that probably into the Atlantic Ocean. So that is a big, big change. Looks like Charlie. Yeah, it sort of does, unfortunately. It's just... honestly, again, I'm hoping that this goes to the north and towards the Panhandle, because in that scenario, it would be a much weaker landfall, and it would bring a lot less impacts to central Florida and whatnot, and across really all of the peninsula of Florida, because of the wind shear, again, up in the northern Gulf of Mexico. So we have a lot more wind shear, as I mentioned before, up in here. But with the latest European model run, it shows it's going to almost dodge that entire area of wind shear and go basically towards Tampa. But again, let's hope that's not going to happen. Again, it's just one computer model run. It's not an official forecast, but obviously the European model has been fairly accurate and consistent to this point. So it is something that we have to really keep in mind here heading into, again, the next couple of days. Who drew Cuba and Jamaica? Yeah, the problem is the infrared imagery kind of overlaps. This is a look at it. Yeah, we're kind of at a slanted angle. This is a look overhead. So, yeah, this is a look at it as right now. Jamaica obviously down here. Cuba right here. Western Cuba, again, under hurricane warnings. Category 2 or 3 hurricanes expected to make landfall overnight tonight. Eventually closer to Tampa going into about Thursday or Friday. It's expected to make landfall most likely along the west coast. So... but again, we will see what happens. That's obviously, as I mentioned before, a major change from the last computer model run that we had. So, University of Florida, by the way, heads up, University of Florida has canceled classes Wednesday through Friday. So if you are in the University of Florida, that's a big school, by the way. University of Florida has officially canceled classes for Wednesday through Friday. So that is a new update. Again, we have a lot of college campuses closing. That's our latest update there. Double check if we have any other updates here. See if I have any other ones here. Yeah, that's a big update. So, University of Florida no longer has school, it seems like, on Wednesday through Friday. Also, another update. Daytona State College is canceling all classes beginning Wednesday and Thursday. And they will, yeah, cancel classes completely. So another college that has canceled classes is Daytona State College. And we have a lot of colleges now closing, so that's our latest update on the colleges closing. Again, University of Florida and Daytona State College are the most recent ones to close in the last hour. I'm not sure about any others. Again, if you know any colleges that are officially canceled, feel free to leave those in the chat. I can't fact check them, but I'll mention any ones that I see. As long as you're being honest. Hopefully you are. But again, University of Florida has now canceled classes. And along with Daytona State College are the most two recent ones that I've seen. Yeah, I go over here real quick and take a look. By the way, if you're just tuning in for the first time, again, we are going to be live for another 20 to 30 minutes, and then we're going to do a second live stream at 9:30 for the 11 p.m. advisory. That is the bigger advisory. I expect a big change in the cone and a lot of new updates with that, so make sure that you are clicking the bell icon down below and subscribing. Again, that will be a more important live stream because there's going to be a lot of changes with that one. So again, make sure you're subscribed down below, hit the red button. Again, it's free to do, and also make sure to hit the bell icon down below so you're notified when I go live. All right, back over to chat here. If it strikes near Tampa or even just south of there, the likelihood of it being a Category 3 hurricane is much higher than it were if it were to be in like northern Florida, for example. So, yeah, it's more likely than not if it does make landfall near Tampa or just south of there, it's going to probably make landfall as a major hurricane. At least from my understanding and what I'm thinking, that's again kind of my thinking right now. It's obviously not everybody's thinking, but I'm pretty sure it's going to make landfall around a Category 3 if it went in that direction. If not a strong Category 2. Hey, Colby, how you doing? What was the pressure of Charlie at landfall? I am not entirely sure on the history of that. I think it was... Let me look it up, because I probably butchered the number. Go and take a look here. Yeah, this might be a kind of a similar situation to Charlie. There's a possibility for sure. Let's take a look at the pressure. Basically be a pretty similar track. 941 millibars. Or 965 millibars. Wait. No, 941 millibars was the lowest pressure. Yeah, this is very similar, I would say, to Hurricane Charlie. In terms of its path as of right now being forecasted, it seems like it's going to be fairly similar to that. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that's what we're probably looking at as of right now in terms of its intensity. It's gotten worse. I know, Kobe. Yeah, it really has. The track intensity, all that sort of stuff seems to be getting worse. Sarasota County, by the way, an update. We have evacuation of level A issued in Sarasota County starting Tuesday. If you are in level A in Sarasota County, again, you are now under a level A evacuation. That means whoever's in the level A area is being basically told to be evacuated. B and C, if you're in B and C, evacuation orders have been issued now in Tampa and that county. Pinellas County, if I'm saying the name right, is now in a B and C evacuation order starting tomorrow. So again, evacuation orders are being issued for those along the west coast near Tampa and as well as there near Sarasota. That's our latest update there. But yeah, this is, for those that are just tuning in, this is kind of what I was mentioning. The concern is now beginning to grow more on the west coast of Florida. The most recent European model run, which has again been the most the most consistent model to date with Hurricane Ian, long-term has been the European model. It's now beginning to shift more further to the south towards Sarasota. Now, again, there's a lot of time in between now and when this might make landfall, and really what's going to determine this would be over the next 24 hours as it moves over Cuba. Where it goes from there is still a question mark, but the latest European model run shows it makes landfall near Tampa or Sarasota, which would be the absolute worst case scenario out of any scenario right now. So it's basically showing the worst case scenario right now in our hands, and then eventually go through Florida very slowly. So that is the more concerning thing that I was mentioning before. Again, it's just a computer model. It's not a forecast, but that is what we're really looking at again at the latest European model run. And just comparison to the last 6 hours, this is the other model run from this computer model. It showed it kind of flirt right along the west coast of Florida, bringing potentially some extreme rainfall just off the coast of Florida. And then eventually it would kind of slow down and eventually speed up as it went towards the Big Bend. That was 6 hours ago. Now, our most recent model run, as I said before, was closer to areas like Tampa and Sarasota. So that is really the big concern as of right now with the latest computer model runs, which again, it's just a computer model, but it's definitely something that we have to be keeping in mind very closely because that's, again, been the most consistent computer model run to date. So, yeah. Thanks, Roll. I appreciate it. Again, if you're just tuning in, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Again, we'll be doing full Hurricane Ian coverage throughout the week. So we'll be doing it all week long. We'll be keeping you safe and keeping you updated with the latest information here on the YouTube channel. We're doing a lot of live streams as well. And we're only 88 subscribers from 1900, or 19,000, excuse me. So make sure to hit the subscribe button if you've not already. The current pressure with Hurricane Ian is 965. It was 972 3 hours ago. It has dropped by 7 millibars in the past 3 hours. Yes, and the other thing with the European model in its latest update, it almost has a almost identical now track to Hurricane Charlie. It's very close. Let me go back over to it. We'll do this again. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty close to it. Let's go over to this. Let's do Florida. And yeah, so this is a look at the computer model run again. And it's almost identical to what Charlie did. I think Charlie was a little bit faster, but eventually it basically shows that it would go right across Florida into the Atlantic Ocean. That is exactly what we do not want to see. This is the worst case scenario, as I said before, which obviously it's in the realm of possibilities, but we're still, again, a little bit far out from, you know, we're still about 60 to 84 hours out from this. And there's still a load of uncertainty with this, but rainfall totals, as you can really see replicate here, that they could be very significant if that scenario was to happen. In comparison to, again, the European model from 6 hours ago, that showed a completely different scenario, with the rain being mostly off the coast, with obviously up to a half a foot to maybe an isolated foot inland. So that's the big difference here. Again, that is a major change to what we saw before, so we have to watch that closely. We'll have to wait, though, for the 0-0-Z run, because that'll give us a better idea if the consistency, you know, if it stays consistent with that sort of landfall, and see if any other computer models as well do show the same exact thing or something similar. So, to see what happens there. We need the Waffle House Index. That's what we need. We need the Waffle House Index for this whole thing. And the GFS model run, by the way, at 18Z, just for reference, it still shows it somewhat off the coast of Tampa. It shows a brief landfall near Tampa, and then it moves off to the north. So again, just one model run, but we'll have to watch that closely, because that's a big difference from before, as I said before. Again, if you have any questions, by the way, feel free to pop them in the chat. The chat is not going overly fast as in comparison to yesterday, so if you have any questions, I should be able to answer them more than what I was able to yesterday. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Welcome back. Thanks, CB. Appreciate it. Yeah, again, I'm in Florida too, so I'll be bracing this hurricane with y'all. If you guys are in Florida, which most of you probably are, I will be bracing it with you. We have a storm drain overflowing in Miami, by the way. I'll go and retweet it to our Twitter, so if you want to go check that out, there is a storm drain that is overflowing already in Miami, which Miami is really not an area for concern with the hurricane or whatnot, but rain is possible there. So if you want to go to my Twitter, by the way, and follow and whatnot, I would appreciate it, but I'll go and link it in the chat. So I'll link it a couple of times, but there is a little retweet on there. If you want to check out that on Twitter of a storm drain completely overflowing in Miami. Thank you, Thigh Death, by the way, for the $2 super chat. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Glad you enjoy the channel. More current one. I'll show you again. Let me go over to here. That is not the right screen, I don't think. Definitely not. Let's go to this one. Or maybe it was. Sorry. I had to do. Sorry. Apologize for doing 3 transitions. This is the most recent European model, though. Run. Again, this was the most recent run. Again, take it with a grain of salt right now, but that is, again, a big change from before. Not really any other computer models are showing this. The only other one that has shown a similar scenario was the Icon model, which does have a more recent update. Let me go over to a different screen here. I'll have to kind of shrink this down a little bit. All right, I have to keep changing scenes. I apologize. It might be kind of annoying, but I have to figure out what scene's right. So this is a look at this one. The Icon model shows a similar scenario, very similar to the European model. Those two computer models, again, have been pretty consistent recently. That's what we're looking at there. Donation link, Jaws, is in the top description somewhere. It should just be under, like, support or whatever. But yeah, the European, or the Icon model shows a pretty similar scenario here. Yeah, go back over to here. I'll put it in chat if you want to. There you go. I think everybody should just evacuate. Now, not everybody has to evacuate. Honestly, though, everybody should be ready though for this. And honestly, anyone in Florida other than like the Pensacola area, basically, you should at least be ready for the impacts. And there very well could be the potential for really the biggest threat across almost all of Florida will be the potential for flash flooding. That's basically the biggest concern. Now, if you're on the West Coast or in the Big Bend region, the potential for maybe extreme winds and storm surge becomes much more of a factor. So that's really the big concerns. Also, if you're inland, tornado potential exists as well. So we basically have like a dual threat as of right now across Florida. But our highest threat level, again, is going to be the extreme rainfall because it's going to cover a lot more area. Yeah, storm surge definitely going to be significant as well along the West Coast. Thank you, Thomas, by the way, for the $5 super chat. So yes, this is the infrared imagery, and the infrared imagery basically shows what the cloud tops are and whatnot, and what the temperature is. Now, I don't have a temperature key for you, so I really can't give you that, but I can give you an idea of what this all shows. So let me go and pause this real quick. So you can kind of see these white colors. This represents temperatures that are very cold, meaning we have very high cloud tops here. This is significant storm activity as well around the eye of the storm, which is pretty much right about here right now. But that's a lot of like really high cloud tops and a lot of, you know, very strong to potentially even severe storms there near the eye. That's kind of like the eye wall almost. Outside of there, a lot of the greens, blues, and whatnot are lower clouds, but it is enough to produce showers and whatnot. So if we go to the live radar, for example, let's go over to this. This is a look at the live radar in comparison to like the clouds as of right now. Much stronger storms currently, and a lot of the outer bands right now going through the Keys right now in southern Florida. That is much stronger storm activity. And if we go and put in comparison to the infrared imagery, look at all that white showing up. That is a lot of strong and really high cloud tops, at least as of right now, south of Homestead. So that's what we're looking at when we talk about the infrared imagery. It really just helps to depict the overall cloud tops and how cold they are and whatnot. Gives us a pretty good idea as well in terms of at least the intensity of what this is as well. So we're looking at there. Let me go put this back in loop. That's a little bit of an explanation, though, on the infrared imagery. There's also the satellite imagery, which obviously shows the different types of clouds and whatnot, which I typically show. I was showing it at the beginning, but obviously we are now past 8 o'clock and it's dark, so we can't really see the infrared, or at least the satellite, anymore. Thank you, Amy, by the way, for becoming a Storm Chaser member. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate you becoming a member. Thank you. Thank you, Jaws, for the $50 donation. Really do appreciate it, Jaws. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the $50 donation. If you haven't already, make sure to put some claps in the chat for Jaws. That is very generous. Thank you very much. That will be going towards gas tomorrow because I really desperately have to get gas here in Florida. I have yet to get gas, and my gas tank is almost empty. For my evacuation plan that is currently in place, I am going to have to get gas. So, hoping for the best with that, but appreciate that a lot, Jaws. Thank you very much. Let me go back over to here. Let's see if there's any new updates. I don't see any as of right now. You're good, Josh. Thank you. Appreciate your generosity. What's the wind field with hurricane force winds, you mean? After, oh, you mean after Florida? Oh, the track, sorry. Oh, wait, no, there's two questions with one, wait. All right, so hurricane force winds, currently the current radius that is forecasted, let me go put it back in this perspective here. Let's take off the infrared imagery. This is a look at the current projection of where we may see hurricane force winds. The pink areas where we're looking at category 1 force winds are greater. Now, honestly, we very well could see that outside of this region, but with the given track that we have right now, we are forecasted to at least see hurricane force winds in Tampa and Sarasota. The current forecast from the National Weather Service of Tampa Bay has this region here with category 3 level winds or greater. Outside of there, the category 1 force winds or greater kind of goes out closer to Cape Coral through Spring Hill. But again, that's our current forecast. Things will shift, but that's what's forecasted at least long term. But again, that's long term. Things will most likely change. But other than that, that pink area represents your actual hurricane force winds. There would be a pink area here, but it's not forecastable yet. So that's what we're looking at as right now, though, in terms of the wind field. Do this again. What about South Dakota with this hurricane? This hurricane's going nowhere near South Dakota. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it. Appreciate you tuning in, by the way. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Again, pretty interactive live stream. I'm trying to answer as many questions as I can, so if you have any, feel free to put them in the chat. I won't be able to answer every single one, but if you have any specific questions, feel free to leave them in. Also, if you're new here, make sure to hit the red button down below and subscribe. Again, we will be keeping you updated with the latest information on Hurricane Ian as it approaches Florida. We'll be doing a lot of live streams this week, so we'll be your pretty much to go-to for hurricane coverage. And also, not just that, we're only 36 subscribers from 19,000, so would appreciate if you hit the subscribe button if you've not already. Where will this hurricane go after Florida? That is a question mark. Long term, though, the more likely scenario is that this goes most likely, again, it depends on what the track is. Now, the latest European model run shows it will go in this direction, which is similar to what we saw with Hurricane Charlie. But more than not, a lot of computer models have been kind of indicating it would do something like this. But again, that is long term. We have a large cone of uncertainty to begin with, and it's even larger long term. I mean, it really realistically could go anywhere. So, again, can't really give you an idea of where it'll go from here, but just make sure, again, if you're anywhere in the track of it, the tornado potential may exist outside of there for areas back up in areas like, you know, the East Coast and whatnot, if it goes further inland. But that's, again, kind of a long-ass thing. Yeah, if you're asking specific questions about impacts beyond the current cone of uncertainty, I'm not going to be able to answer really any questions on that. Even really in the short term, it's hard to answer that because other than storm surge and the rainfall and all that, we know more about Florida's impacts. Beyond there, it depends on where this goes, because if it goes out to sea into the Atlantic Ocean, we are talking about a completely different scenario. If it goes through the states like Georgia, Carolinas, and whatnot, we are talking about at least some rainfall, maybe some flash flooding, along with maybe even a tornado potential. So long term, again, is a hard question to answer because, again, we don't have a specific track that we really can go off of that far long term. The cone of uncertainty, as I mentioned before, is already large enough as is. So North Carolina will not get hit hard unless it goes out to sea into the Atlantic Ocean. It may get a little bit more rough if you're along the east coast of basically North Carolina. But other than that, again, specific details are kind of hard to come by right now. Hey, no problem, Tom. Appreciate you tuning in. Hey, Zach, how you doing? No changes right now. Again, the 11 p.m. advisory will probably have a lot of changes to Florida. I do expect a big cone change, most likely at 11 p.m. I think it's going to shift further to the east. That seems like what we're getting at this point out of most of the computer models. It seems like a landfall along the west coast is imminent. So that's my kind of thinking as of right now in terms of at least the long term. So, again, storm surge is going to be highest near Tampa for right now. That might change again, but landfall somewhere along the west coast seems more likely than not. So, basically, anywhere in this region seems to have the best chance. Big Bend is still not out of the question. It's a low chance, but maybe. It's very low, though, at this point in terms of that track. But other than that, again, we're still looking at a pretty much long-term situation there. Hey, no problem, Fraser. Appreciate you tuning in. No problem at all. You think Miami issue a tropical storm watch? They might. It's unlikely, but right now, I don't think... I don't know. It's going to be kind of close. They might, or at least the wind gusts. They might issue one even as early as tonight, but overall, Miami, West Palm Beach, not expected to see that much in terms of the system. I wouldn't be shocked if they got a tropical storm watch, because as of right now, as many of you know, there is a tropical storm watch up and down the East Coast. That does include areas inland as well. So Deltona, Palm Bay, Jacksonville, all included in a tropical storm watch. The only area in Florida not included, other than the Panhandle, would be West Palm Beach and Miami. But they might issue one. We'll see. Yeah, we'll basically see. I'm not going to put any guarantees on that, but there's definitely a possibility that there is one. Other than that, there is a hurricane warning, as I mentioned before, in effect for Tampa and Sarasota. Tropical storm warning in effect from Cape Coral back through areas in southwest Florida and the Florida Keys. And there's also a hurricane watch in effect near just south of the Big Bend, west of Ocala, and then a tropical storm watch in effect south of Tallahassee. So that's what we're looking at as of right now in terms of the watches and warnings across Florida. But obviously, things may change as we get closer. I'll be fine. Don't worry. You don't need to know. I'm fine. Trust me. I have a lot of evacuation plans. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I will be fine, and I have plenty of plans. We're only one subscriber, by the way, away from 19,000. Again, if you've not already, hit the subscribe button down below. I would appreciate it. No problem, Alex. Appreciate you tuning in. Live in Orlando. What am I in serious danger? All right, so Orlando is kind of one of those things where it depends on the track, and it depends on the track for everybody, really. But Orlando is one of the scenarios where we could see a lot of rain or a lot of rain. I mean, basically, the difference is that with the latest European model run, for example, again, it's just one computer model, but most recent run basically showed that this system would go right across Florida. So you know, for example, if it went across Florida like this, we could see more significant rainfall in the Orlando and Central Florida region. If it went more off to the north, closer to the Big Bend, for example, rainfall totals would be between probably 4 to 8 inches in comparison to what it could be if it went into Central Florida, which might be as much as a foot. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as of right now. Other than that, there's a low-end chance for a few tornadoes across Florida over the next few days. Again, that includes almost all of the peninsula of Florida. And yeah, that's really the main concerns. I mean, wind threat is also going to exist if it goes through Central Florida. Otherwise, if it does stay off the coast, tropical storm force winds would be about all for at least the Orlando area. But again, if it makes landfall and goes right through the middle of Florida, we are talking the potential for maybe somewhere in the range of hurricane force winds if it went through the central portions of Florida, like through Interstate 4. But again, a lot of question marks still there, so we'll keep you updated with any new information there. But at least the latest update there. Polk school closings. I've heard from somebody that all public schools are closed, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You have to double check on, you know, other websites. I've heard rumors about certain schools. I know for the most recent schools that have closed is the University of Florida and as well as Daytona State College. Those are the most two recent ones that I know of. You comment on the rapid lowering from category 1 to category 3 to category 1. Yeah, Scott, so it's the wind shear. And I've mentioned it a few times, but there's a lot more wind shear up. Let me do a different color here. It's a little better here. But wind shear is much higher up here in the northern Gulf of Mexico. So if this system were to track into the Big Bend, it would weaken rapidly. Even if it went into like even areas near Tampa, it would likely weaken quickly. The big question mark, though, now comes if this takes a sharper turn, sort of like Charlie, into either directly into Tampa, or it even goes a little bit further south than that. There's not going to be really any wind shear down that direction. So if it did that, it would might most likely make landfalls around a category 2 to 3 hurricane. That's the big concern, at least with the latest European model run. Beyond that, though, I mean, if it went further off to the north like this, it would interact with a lot of wind shear. Therefore, it would make landfall as either a tropical storm or a category 1 hurricane. So that's the big difference here in terms of why it's going to weaken so quickly. So the wind shear is playing a big part in terms of the long story here. It'll be interesting to see. Honestly, I've never gone through a hurricane before, so this will be my first experience through a hurricane. See what happens. Again, I'll keep you posted. I'm going to be live anyways. I do have a generator, so we'll be chilling with the live streams and whatnot over the next few days. But yeah. Mystic, just make sure to take the proper precautions. Have a plan in place if you were to be under a tornado warning. Put that plan in place before there's any sort of warnings. You know, make that plan right now. You know, figure out where your safety place is in your building. An interior room, away from windows, lowest floor possible. If there is, in any instance, a tornado warning, you want to have that plan in place now and not later. You do not want to wait till the last second to kind of figure out where you're going to go. And it's one of those things with hurricanes, there is a potential for a few tornadoes. In this sort of situation, there is that potential for a few tornadoes. So we have to watch this area again very closely for that threat as well across Florida. But overall, again, the biggest concerns, flash flooding, potential for extreme winds also exists, and storm surge along the coasts. That's the biggest threat as of right now. How far inland do you expect the storm surge to go? It's not going to go that far inland. I mean, it depends on where you are. If you're in Tampa Bay, it could go a mile in. Sometimes I'm not sure how far it goes in Tampa, but I'm pretty sure Tampa Bay is a little bit lower elevation, so it might go in about a mile or so. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Otherwise, it typically is only along the coastlines and a little bit inland. Jacksonville is currently forecasted to see between 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. That is the latest update. Let's go ahead and hop back over to that screen. Oop, wrong screen. Let's hop back over to there. So this is the storm surge forecast for Florida. The most recent update for at least the Jacksonville region is that there could be 2 to 4 feet of storm surge in that area. That's the most recent update. Now, again, that could change. It could go up. It could go down. Depends on the track of this, but that's going to be an area to watch closely for at least some storm surge there. Most extreme storm surge is still forecasted to be near Tampa Bay. Our next update at 11 p.m., the 11 p.m. advisory, will have a lot more information on where the exact track of this will be into Florida, and obviously it'll give us a bit more of an idea of where the higher storm surge numbers will be and the lower storm surge numbers will be, because obviously as of now there's a lot of numbers like 1 to 3 feet, for example, that could get upgraded if this were to track further north, which is still, again, more unlikely than not. More likely scenario, again, would be probably going close to the coast, if not even go inland like that. These are our two scenarios that I think will probably happen. One of these two are more likely than not going to probably occur to some fashion. I mean, one might even go a little bit further south or something like that, but that's the current landfall that's at least expected right now. Cone is still very large, though, so again, realistically, it could make landfall anywhere, but regardless, storm surge numbers will kind of change here over the next at least 48 hours. We'll probably see a new forecast here again pretty soon from the National Hurricane Center as well. Here's, by the way, a high-def look at the infrared imagery near Cuba. Thunderstorm activity is exploding back near just south of Cuba right now, so a lot of convection with this as it continues to move off to the north. And here's the spaghetti models, by the way. The next update on this comes out actually pretty soon. Actually, it just came out. Let's go and take a look at the... Okay, this is a big change, guys. Big change. Let's discuss this, because this is a big change from before. This is our most recent spaghetti models run that we have. And this is, again, a major change, and we will probably see a big cone shift along with this. Almost every computer model now makes this landfall somewhere in West Florida. Almost every model now shows that it'll make landfall somewhere in West Florida near Tampa, as far south as Cape Coral. So that's a major change there. Otherwise, there's still a couple of models that bring up into the Great Bend. These have been, again, more inconsistent. So that is a big change. So yeah, again, a lot of computer models are, again, bringing this now towards Tampa and the Cape Coral area. Again, that's a massive change, though, from before. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, that is not something that you want to see. And again, multiple of them are bringing it out into the Atlantic Ocean. So, big change. It seems like it'll make landfall somewhere between about the Great Bend back through about Cape Coral. That, again, the cone will probably shift in the next outlook. So, big change, big change. Intensity, by the way, has not changed a whole lot. Still forecasted to be at least a Category 3, maybe a low-end Category 4 hurricane. But again, if you're just tuning in, the European model, the most recent run, indicates that this would make landfall down near Sarasota, for example. Big change again from the last model run, and then eventually goes through Florida and brings extreme rainfall to Central Florida. So again, a lot of changes here overall, and we'll have to watch this again very closely. Yeah, that is not a change that you want to see. Again, here's the spaghetti models. Again, it combines all of the computer models onto one graphic, or not all of them, but a lot of the major ones. And again, a lot of them bring it to the west coast of Florida on the most recent model runs, which probably indicates our next outlook will shrink the current cone that we have, which again, this is our current cone across Florida. This will probably shrink to some extent. You know, again, this will probably shrink down a bit more. It's probably not going to include as much of the Big Bend or Panhandle area up there in northern Florida. So again, a lot of changes here for sure. This will definitely be something to monitor very closely, because that's a big change overall in terms of where this might make landfall. It seems like it's becoming more and more likely it'll make landfall in West Florida. If you're just tuning in, by the way, an update on school closures. The University of Florida has now been officially canceled classes, at least for Wednesday and Thursday. I'm not sure about the entire week. And Daytona State College has also done the same thing. So that's our latest update there as well. So yeah, a lot of updates there. Thank you, Jaws, for the $150 donation. Holy moly. If you have not already, put some claps in the chat for Jaws. That is an extremely generous donation. I really do appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much. Get some claps in the chat for Jaws. Very generous. By the way, we have kind of changing topics real quick, but a lot of the crews, the electrical crews, are now staging for Hurricane Ian, by the way. So just an update there. I'll retweet that on my Twitter. Again, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm posting a lot of stuff on there in terms of content and whatnot for the tropics. Make sure to go follow me. I'll go put it in the chat again. I want to go check that out. Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate it a lot. I appreciate it a lot, Josh. Thank you very much. That's more than just a little bit of gas money, by the way. Appreciate it. All right, let me back over to Twitter real quick. See if we have any new updates. All right, no new evacuation orders, by the way. Again, we'll probably have more pretty soon, but see what happens. We live in Naples. Do you think we should evacuate? I cannot give you any advice on evacuations. I literally cannot. Like, I literally do not want to give you advice because I don't want to be right or wrong in that scenario. Follow what your officials tell you to do. Emergency management and whatnot. Follow those people because, honestly, I'm not going to give you any advice on evacuations and stuff like that. It's just not an area that I want to give advice in. So, I'm not going to give advice in that sort of, that sense. But do I recommend it? I can't even tell you that. I just don't want to give that sort of advice out. Because evacuations is a whole different realm of stuff that, you know, I just really can't give you. But obviously be prepared for sure if you're along the West Coast. And that would include Naples as well. Thank you, Phantom and Jose, by the way, for subscribing. I appreciate it. Yes, it is currently a Category 2 hurricane. You are correct. Yes, Ian is now a Category 2 hurricane. Sustained winds at 100 miles per hour. Central pressure is about 965 millibars. It's moving about north-northwest at about 13 miles per hour. It is forecasted to, again, slow down over Florida. Wherever it goes, it's going to start to stall either near Tampa or just off the coast. Or if it makes landfall and goes across Florida, it would stall probably in central Florida for a little while. So that's our big concern as of right now, because extreme flooding could come out of that. Thank you, Jaws. I appreciate it. Jaws is drunk. That's probably not a good thing. Do not be donating $200 if you're drunk. Not be donating at all. Yes, Ian is as large as it looks. Yes, it's very large. I'm not. Does anybody have the exact number on the width? I don't personally. I've measured it, but obviously it's not an official measurement. I'm not sure if there's an official measurement out, but there probably is. But radius, not seeing it on this website. A radius of maximum wind is about 20 nautical miles, by the way. So 500. That's what I've heard. I've heard 500. Ethan, it's a low chance, but there is a potential for a few tornadoes in Florida tomorrow. Again, it's a very large area. So, again, Cape Canaveral, it's possible. Just make sure you have a plan in place just in case. They're saying 500. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because when I measure this on my map, obviously this is not an official measurement by any means, but if I go and pause it here, I don't have satellite imagery. This is infrared, but different. But I mean, if you measure it, yeah, it's about 500 miles. About 500 miles or so. Go a little bit further out for some of these like way outer bands, but it's probably a good 5 to 550, I would say, in terms of mileage. But obviously they're gonna be more accurate. I'm pretty sure it's right around 500. 560 or 536 miles. Let's go and add that up a little bit. Yeah, does not add up. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's right around 500. It might be 536, probably somewhere in that range. 5 to 550 seems realistic. Let me take this off. There we go. Yeah, the cone of uncertainty for, again, this is the current cone of uncertainty across the beaches here. 357 miles currently is that rate, or basically the area of where it can make landfall. But again, in the next update, I expect that to shrink down, probably to somewhere in this range here. I'll go ahead and kind of put a little path here. This is kind of my next thinking here, so about 300 miles. So yeah, it'll probably shrink. That cone of uncertainty will shrink down, I would say, in the next outlook. Again, that's in about 2 hours, so I'll see what happens. But I do think a big update's coming at 11 p.m. tonight to give us a bit more clarity on what we can expect on where this can go. All right, we have some tips and tricks if you are in Florida, by the way. I will not, Jaws. Thank you. Appreciate it. We have some tips and tricks if you're in Florida. There's just a few. I'm not going to read off all of them, but I'll retweet this on my Twitter. So if you're following me on Twitter, you can see this as well for yourself. Again, go follow. I'll go and actually link my Twitter in chat if you want to read along with me. But there's a few little tips and tricks that I will give you if you live in Florida on what you can do to prepare for landfall. Again, if you want to read it for yourself, you can go to my Twitter page. It's retweeted on there. So just some hurricane tips. Charge any device that provides light, because if you lose power, you're going to want some way to get light. Again, that includes phones, cameras, video cameras, old phones even, and laptops. Wash all trash cans and fill them with water for flushing toilets. Never actually heard of that, but that's also another tip that you can do. Fill every tub and sink with water. Okay. Fill empty water bottles and other containers with water and keep them near sinks for hand washing as well. It's another tip that you should definitely do. Because obviously you want to make sure all your water is filled, because if you run out of water, obviously that's not going to be a good thing. With a hurricane coming, it's obviously not something you want to happen. So make sure you have plenty of water and obviously a lot of food as well. Fill empty food containers with water and store them in the freezer to keep them cold and longer to serve as a backup water supply, just in case. It's another tip that you can do. Obviously, you don't have to do all of these, but these are just some that you can do. Cook any meats and other perishable foods in advance. And you can freeze cooked foods. And that's from the tips that I'm reading. Be well hydrated even before the storm hits, and avoid salty foods. That includes like French fries, obviously like burgers, that sort of thing. Trying to avoid, at least don't add additional salt. So yeah, avoid salt foods so you don't get dehydrated, especially. If you have a low water supply, you definitely do not want to be eating salty stuff. Wash all dirty clothes and bed sheets. Make sure you do this. I actually did it today, so make sure that you do go ahead and wash your clothes, wash your sheets, all that sort of stuff before this gets here. It's a big thing. Do it today, do it tonight, do it tomorrow, whatever. Do it before it gets here, though. Toss out any expiring food. That's just another kind of common sense thing almost than anything. Bring any yard decorations and anything that's loose outside. Bring that stuff inside. That includes umbrellas and stuff like that. You know, the patio furniture, that sort of thing. There's umbrellas that stick up and people don't take those down. Make sure you take that stuff down. That is actually really crucial. Make sure you double check that. I'll read a couple more. Stock up on pet food and supplies. Fill water bowls. Those are also big things, by the way. If you have pets, make sure you're filling up water bowls. And other than that, drop your AC in advanced and lower temperatures in your fridge. And fill propane tanks as well. And refill any meditations, and that's basically the most stuff. So yeah, there's 18 tips. If you want to read them, again, you can go to my Twitter page, and you can go and find that out. Again, make sure to follow me on your way there if you're going to my Twitter, because I want followers on Twitter. I don't really have any. So yeah, all the tips are on Twitter. I'll link it again in chat. I was actually going to take a break, but we have a lot of viewers right now. I was going to take a break, though. We're only like 2 hours away from the advisory, so take your Halloween Yes, take your Halloween decorations down. If you have any Halloween decorations up right now, take those down. Yeah, a lot of people probably still have their Halloween decorations up right now, so people are probably already beginning to put them up. Yes, Ethan, I do think it will shift east. I do think the cone will also condense at the next outlook. All right, what do you guys think? Should I stay live for the next 2 to 3 hours and only go until like 11:30, 12 o'clock? Or should I take a break and do a stream from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m.? What do you guys think? We don't chat. Basically one or the other. Because right now, again, the next hour or two, it's going to be kind of reiterating what I've already told you. So, or at least the next hour. And then in basically from 10 to 1, basically 10 to 11 o'clock, we'll have a lot more information. I'll go back through the entire forecast if I do that. Just make it easier, but I'll probably take a break. At least eat a little bit and then be prepared for the next stream. All right, so if you're just tuning in, again, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the bell icon as well. I'm going to plan on going live again at 10 p.m. EST. That's an hour from now. I'm going to start up another live stream. We're going to go over another discussion on everything that you know. I'm going to go back through the forecast. I'm going to go back through literally everything that I've already kind of said, but a lot of things will be updated by 10 o'clock tonight. So in an hour from now, I'll be going live again. Hit the like button down below. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Everybody that's here right now, go ahead and click the red button down below and subscribe, because I'm going to do another live stream at 10 p.m. going over everything that you know. I'll be going over all the questions that you have as well at 10 p.m. EST. That's my plan as of right now. Also, make sure to click the bell icon down below. It's a little bell that you can ring. Make sure to do that as well. Make sure to hit the bell icon so you get notified when I go live, so you can get to the next live stream tonight. So that's my plan as of right now. So yeah, we'll go ahead and live stream now. I'm going to eat and then I'll come back at 10 p.m. We have a advisory at 11 p.m. That is a big advisory, by the way, from the National Hurricane Center. So make sure that you come back at 10 or 11 p.m. so you get the full update. Again, I'll keep you updated with the latest. The track and intensity will likely change. So stay updated. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe again if you have not already. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Have a great, safe rest of your night if you're not at the next live stream. But again, it's at 10 p.m. EST. We'll keep you updated with the latest. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We will see you all again soon. In literally an hour, by the way.